The golden tail underground centipedes had spat out as much poison mist as they could. Now it seemed that they had received orders, and they suddenly dived back into the ground to flee. Long Chen naturally wouldn't let such outstanding helpers leave like that. He immediately gave the order to Li Qi and Song Mingyuan. Huge hands began to appear in the ground, grabbing the centipedes. A single pinch of 2 fingers on the golden tail underground centipedes' heads and they would die. That was because that was where their poison sac was. Although it was their fatal weak point and had no armor to cover it, enemies didn't dare to actually attack them there. Once the poison sac ruptured, the poison would instantly explode and kill the attacker as well. So while this was their weakest point, it could also be likened to their strongest point. As long as their poison sac was full, even an 11th rank magical beast would be killed in an instant considering that density. So only enemies prepared to die along with it would attack that place. However, today was different. They had run into their bane. Long Chen was using them to kill other magical beasts. They were all killed. Their poison parts were removed, and then their corpses were tossed into the primal chaos space as fertilizer. Just at this moment, rumbling sounds rang out from the distance, and a sea of giant figures were rushing over. It was a veritable sea of beasts. But this time, the scale was 10 times greater than at the start. Within this wave of magical beasts were flying leopards, white tigers, flame wolves, and scaled eagles. All kinds of magical beasts were attacking. Furthermore, the magical beasts flying at the front were all 11th rank magical beasts with powerful auras. Hee, the Dark Forest is finally bringing out their full power. Now the Dragonblood Legion is doomed, snickered a corrupt expert. This beast sea is practically endless. Exterminating the Dragonblood Legion would be simple. Hopefully, they won't be so stupid as to be used by Long Chen again, said someone worriedly. What had happened with the golden tail underground centipedes had been too irritating. Long Chen's expression also became serious now as the true battle was about to start. Even the wood-brained leaders of the Dark Forest wouldn't send magical beasts like the golden tail underground centipedes again. There would probably be no chance to use any tactics, and they would only be able to fight head-on. The mist slowly scattered. The battlefield was running with the blood of magical beasts. There were even large lakes of blood on the ground. The first wave of magical beasts had all been killed. Now, the Dragonblood warriors stood behind Long Chen, staring at the endless wave of magical beasts. They tightly clenched their weapons. Behind the Dragonblood warriors were millions of spirit race warriors. Their expressions were now slightly nervous. This battle related to the survival of the Forest of Life. If they won, the Forest of Life would have some breathing room. If they lost, the spirit world would no longer have a Forest of Life. Although they were nervous, they were fearless. That was because their spirit emperor had told them that the man standing at the front was the savior of the Forest of Life. This wasn't said directly by the spirit emperor, but by the life god tree. Even after experiencing countless battles, seeing this endless horde of magical beasts still made Long Chen's heart pound. To say that he didn't feel the slightest bit nervous would be a lie. This was a true battle, not a game. Losing meant people would die, and death would give the survivors an unbearable eternal pain. No one wanted that. Long Chen took a deep breath. He announced, "Brothers, you fought with me against enemies from all sides. Our path was formed by the skeletons of our enemies, and the rivers we crossed were formed with their blood. We were able to defeat powerful enemies time and time again, but that wasn't because we were so strong, or because we were so brave. It was because we knew we had no path of retreat. It was because we knew we couldn't lose. It was because we knew winning was our only option. Look around you. Look behind you. They are what you have to protect. This is our conviction. To protect what we want to protect, we would rather die than let it fall. But if we fall, we will leave our pain to others. So we can't be defeated and we can't die. Brothers, raise your weapons. Let us fight together again and sweep away the enemies in front of us. Let us use their corpses as our stepping stones to the peak of cultivation. Let us use their blood to paint the picture of our lives. Brothers, fight. Reap their lives to protect what is inside your hearts." Long Chen's voice was subdued at first, but it grew louder and louder, until it resounded through the air. His voice contained his arrogant will to sweep through everything before him. His voice and his will were above the heavenly Daos. Kill! 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 The dragon blood warriors clenched their fists. Each of Long Chen's words smashed into their hearts like a hammer. They looked at their brothers and sisters around them and also looked at the pure spirit race warriors behind them. Long Chen's voice pounded in their ears. Their overflowing battle intent was ignited. It felt like they might combust at any moment. What idiots! Does he think randomly saying a few lines will create a miracle? How laughable! Seeing their surging morale, one of the ancient family experts sneered. The others also looked at the Dragon Blood Legion disdainfully. In their opinion, Long Chen's actions were to cover up the terror in his heart. He needed words to make himself feel brave. Die. That person had only just spoken when Meng Qi suddenly opened her mouth. That ancient family expert suddenly summoned his manifestation, his aura surging violently. Bang! That rank 7 celestial actually self-destructed from just one word from Meng Qi. His self-destruction killed 2 others beside him and injured over 10 of the people around him. Blood filled the air. That woman knows demonic arts, cried someone. To cause a person to self-destruct from just one word had to be a demonic art. It was absolutely bizarre. Everyone be careful. That woman has powerful spiritual fluctuations. She's a terrifying soul cultivator. Warn someone. That person was also a soul cultivator, but he was absolutely terrified. He was at the peak of soul transformation, but not even he could use his spiritual strength to control someone from thousands of miles away. Injuring them would be difficult, let alone causing them to self-destruct. At this time, the sea of beasts finally arrived. Their roaring was like thunder, but they were drowned out by the killing cries of the Dragon Blood Legion. Ardent meteor shower of flames. Long Chen formed hand seals, and flames began to surge behind him. Arrows of fire flew through the sky. Flame energy circulated through the sky. Golden arrows rapidly grew to become meteors shooting down to the earth. This was a secret art that came from Pill Valley. It involved using the flame energy in his body to link up to the fire elemental energy in the sky, forming huge balls of fire. Each ball was 3,000 meters wide and smashed down like falling stars, exploding amongst the magical beasts. Each of them was like a firework exploding when they landed. Golden flames covered the battlefield. The rain of meteors didn't stop. It was like the heavens were collapsing, and terrifying flames completely enveloped the battlefield. The magical beasts that were struck were instantly smashed to pieces. And those that weren't smashed to death were burned to death. Only a few powerful 11th rank magical beasts were able to charge through the flames to attack. However, their bodies were still burning, and the furred ones had their defensive power sharply drop. Although Long Chen had unleashed a huge area attack, there were still too many magical beasts. Some of them were already skating around the zone of the flames to attack from the sides. Life God, bless us with your divine power to repel our enemies. Just at this moment, devout chanting filled the air. More and more spirit race warriors appeared, and countless spirit beasts also arrived. The forest of life's full power was finally appearing. These spirit race warriors unleashed a rain of arrows at the magical beasts. These arrows easily pierced through the bodies of 11th rank magical beasts and killed them. These were spirit generals, and although their cultivation base was equivalent to the soul transformation realm, there was now divine light shining from above their heads. That was the life god's blessing. Their arrows now had a terrifying penetrative power. Not even an 11th rank magical beast would be able to endure being struck where their crystal core was. The dark forest's magical beasts were falling in droves from the spirit race warriors' arrows. As for the spirit beasts, they protected the spirit race warriors, preventing the magical beasts from reaching them. The curtains to an immense battle had finally been drawn. With each passing second, lives were mercilessly harvested. We're done watching as well. Prepare to annihilate the Dragon Blood Legion in one move, said Sha Guangyan suddenly, killing intent blazing in his eyes. Magical beasts were roaring ferociously, filling the sky and the ground. All kinds of magical beasts as large as mountains with shocking auras were attacking. Long Chen's sea of flames roasted them, but these magical beasts seemed insane. They charged straight through to attack the Dragonblood Legion. Kill! Guaran attacked the first one and sliced a magical beast, whose whole body had been charred black, in half. It was the opener to a great battle. Help me look after the battlefield, said Long Chen. All right. Tang Wan'er nodded and summoned her manifestation. Wind blades filled the air around her, and more of them appeared. Some of them were already slicing their way toward the magical beasts. Normally, Tang Wan'er's individual wind blades would have great difficulty piercing the defenses of an 11th rank magical beast. After all, she summoned millions of wind blades at once, so their individual power was limited. However, after becoming a rank 9 celestial, her control over heavenly Tao energy had reached an unprecedented height, and the power of her wind blades also grew. After passing through the sea of flames, the magical beasts were badly burned, and many of them were still burning as they passed through. With their defensive power lowered, her individual wind blades could easily pierce their bodies. So Tang Wan'er was the one best suited for overlooking the entire battlefield. Long Chen, I should attack too, Meng Qi transmitted to Long Chen upon seeing everyone else join the battle. No, you have another mission. Sense Gui Yan's current position, transmitted back Long Chen. Oh, Gui Yan's gone. Wait, that direction. He's trying to loop around the battlefield. What's he doing? Meng Qi was startled by what she sensed. It's not that surprising. Have Cloud go out to keep a watch on Gui Yan. My guess is he wants to loop around to attack the spirit race warriors from behind. Since Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan are still standing at the front to draw out attention, they probably want to launch a simultaneous attack from both our front and back, said Long Chen. Meng Qi nodded. A small, rainbow-colored bird appeared on her shoulder. It was Cloud. After comprehending its ancestral secret arts from the myriad spirit diagram, Cloud had not only learned several domineering techniques, but it had also learned how to control its size and conceal its aura. With its speed and Meng Qi's senses, keeping watch over one person was practically like playing a game. Cloud quickly flapped its wings and vanished into the distance. Chu Yao, I need you to just make a token effort for now. Your mission will come a bit later. Long Chen smiled wickedly. Fuck those two, they actually sent me to sneak attack from the back. Gui Yan was stealthily leading 3,000 experts in a large loop around the battlefield. He cursed inside. He was completely enraged. Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing had ordered him around like a dog. However, there was no way around it. Their reasoning was simple. The corrupt path didn't have an expert on their level, so they had to listen to the two of them. The corrupt path's top expert, Lin Yueyan, hadn't revealed herself from the start. Some people even suspected that she had already left the spirit world. Their three large powers were currently working together with the Dark Forest. Although the corrupt path had sent the most people, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, the majority of them were just extras who had come to dredge up some benefits. Their actual combat power was limited. So the ancient races and ancient family alliances experts all mocked them for being a group of poor ghosts come to beg for food. During this time, Gui Yan and the other corrupt experts had been forced to endure the mocking of the ancient races and ancient family alliance. The ancient family alliance had been the worst of the two, as they were originally enemies with the corrupt path. They naturally had all kinds of words for them. Nobody had asked the corrupt path to not have a top expert with them. Now that the great battle was starting, it clearly showed that they were lacking sincerity in their cooperation with the Dark Forest. If they didn't cooperate, then considering the wooden brains of the Dark Forest leaders, it would be all too easy for the ancient races and ancient family alliance to convince the Dark Forest that the corrupt path wasn't worth allying with. In the future, they might even be cut out like Pill Valley. To the corrupt path, the Dark Forest was an important ally due to their control over the spirit world. The corrupt path definitely couldn't offend them. This was something the higher-ups had told them before they had entered the spirit world. So Gui Yan had a belly full of anger and nowhere to release it. He could only curse Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan inside. He couldn't even say his curses out loud, because amongst the 3,000 experts he was leading, there were people from the ancient races and ancient families. These people were all elites. Including Gui Yen, there were 4 rank 9 celestials. 2 were from the corrupt path, while there was 1 each from the ancient races and ancient families. The remaining experts were mostly rank 8 celestials, and the majority of those people were soul transformation experts. There were also over 10 life star experts. Those life star experts were just rank 6 celestials, and thanks to the heavenly Tao suppression, they wouldn't be able to defeat elite rank 8 celestial Jade Core disciples. However, when facing the spirit race warriors who had no heavenly Tao pressure to suppress them, these life star experts could unleash even greater destructive power. It could be said that this group of 3,000 experts was extremely powerful. They were like a sharp blade about to viciously stab the spirit race warriors in their backs. On the battlefield, there were over 1,300,000 people from the ancient races, corrupt path, and ancient family alliance. For 3,000 people to stealthily leave was practically unnoticeable. This sneak attack had a very high chance of success. What Gui Yen was cursing Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing for wasn't for their tactics. Instead, it was that the two of them had sent their own people to keep a watch over him, as well as to say that when they succeeded, it was thanks to their people and their plan, not the corrupt paths. However, if this ambush failed, the two of them would push all the blame on Gui Yen, saying that he didn't know how to fight properly. Naturally, Gui Yen was aware of this, but he had no way to go against it. That was why he was so angry. That bitch Lin Yuan, where did she go? She never should have been sent here, cursed Gui Yen. If Lin Yuan was present, how could the corrupt path be abused like this? Right now, there was nothing they could do. If they won, they wouldn't share the merit, but if they lost, they would take all the blame. The righteous path is all a bunch of scheming two-faced hypocrites. Gui Yen felt like he might explode out of anger. Although the ancient family alliance was a power in their own right, they could somewhat be considered part of the righteous path. In the end, it was the righteous path that was most skilled in scheming. Right now, the corrupt path had no choice in the matter. If they refused to do what the others said, then once the Dark Forest investigated, the ancient races and ancient family alliance would definitely paint them in a bad light. Gui Yen had led his 3,000 experts well toward the back of the battlefield. Concealing their auras, they were getting closer to the spirit race warriors. After 2 hours of travel, they finally managed to see the battlefield again. They had truly made a huge loop. Just as they were getting closer, they suddenly sensed something. It felt like something was staring at them from behind. When they looked back, their souls almost fled in fright. Somehow, over 10,000 spirit race warriors had appeared behind them. These warriors all had powerful auras. They were the strongest spirit generals of the Forest of Life. Each of them had a bow with an arrow pointing right at Gui Yan's army. An invisible aura locked onto them. We've fallen for a trap. But there was no way they could fight like this, so they naturally turned to flee. Facing 10,000 terrifying archers, they would have to be stupid not to run. "Attack!" shouted a spirit race warrior. Her arrow was released, and in the next instant, one of the corrupt path's rank 8 celestials was struck in the head. His head exploded instantaneously. He was a soul transformation expert, but his Yuan spirit was annihilated by this single arrow as well. Ugh. No! Over 10,000 arrows shot out at the same time. Miserable cries began to ring out as they were slain. Boom! One of the corrupt life star experts slashed his sword out, blocking the arrows coming for him. He shouted, "Don't run. They're long-range fighters, so we can't get away. Our only chance is to charge straight at them." He truly was worthy of being a life star expert. His rich battle experience told him that running in this situation would simply make them targets. He led by example, and he began charging his way through the torrent of arrows, repeatedly breaking any arrows with his sword. Following him, everyone else quickly realized that this was truly the only way for them to survive. They turned. The spirit race warriors were all spirit generals with the life god tree's blessing, and their power was immense. These experts were constantly being slain. However, there was nowhere for them to run. Since they couldn't run, they could only charge forward. Very quickly, the Life Star experts managed to charge through their arrows to reach them. Die, you ignorant creatures! The Life Star experts roared and attacked. This was their only chance to retaliate. Yet, they didn't notice that atop one of the spirit race warriors' shoulders was a tiny rainbow-colored bird staring coldly at them. Just as they thought that they had seized their chance to counterattack, the Life Star experts found that the world around them had become dark. What is this place? Where are the spirit race warriors? The Life Star experts suddenly found themselves in a pitch-black space where they couldn't see anything. Not good, we've been ambushed. One of the Life Star experts suddenly sensed something off when a sharp blade of energy cut through his body, severing his waist. The other experts hastily took out their weapons. Their weapons' runes illuminated this space. Here, their divine sense was completely suppressed, making them blind. When their weapons lit up, they managed to see countless thin strands billowing violently in the darkness. They only just managed to get a glance at those strands when one of them severed a Life Star expert's arm. These threads were so thin that they were almost impossible to see with the naked eye. They were many times thinner than a hair, but these experts just barely managed to see that these threads were sawtoothed. Their silent attacks cut through these experts' bodies like they were tofu. Fuck, we've been trapped. The Life Star experts hastily attacked the threads with their full power. But these threads seemed to be controlled by two hands pulling them tautly. They billowed through the space, cutting through bodies. However, the weapons actually bounced off the threads, unable to damage them at all. Our heavenly Tao energy is also suppressed here. Where the hell is this? More and more threads appeared in the air. Millions and millions of them were cutting through them. The Life Star experts let out miserable cries as they were cut to pieces. Even their Yuan spirits were no exception. Even after death, these Life Star experts didn't realize how they had died. They didn't even know who had killed them. They didn't know, but the other experts who had come with them saw it clearly. They had personally witnessed a giant bird devour them in one gulp. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow? They finally recognized the identity of that little bird. Cloud let out a sharp bird cry, and black threads flew out rapidly at them. Not good. Gui Yen and the others hastily went all out resisting. Barriers of light appeared. Boom. Cloud's attack was blocked. But even for 4 rank 9 Celestials, because of how hasty their block was, they were knocked back. The 4 of them were horrified. Although the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow was an ancient species of great power, they had no idea how it could possess such power at just the peak of the 9th rank. That was only equivalent to the Jade Core realm. Worst of all, now that the 4 of them were knocked back, the Spirit Race Warriors' arrows rained down on all of them. There was no way for them to dodge. Although the 4 rank 9 Celestials managed to block Cloud's attack, the shockwaves blew away the surrounding experts as well. As they were still impacted by that attack, they were shot down by the arrows. Cloud's arrival had instantly ruined their plans. At such a distance, there was no way for them to dodge or block the arrows of 10,000 spirit generals. The 3,000 experts were slain, while the 4 rank 9 Celestials fled for their lives. They found that fleeing was their smartest choice right now. They were already regretting what that Life Star expert had said at the beginning. If they had fled from the start, they might already be gone. All the spirit generals aimed their bows at the 4 of them. As a result, thanks to the divine energy in their arrows, 3 of the rank 9 Celestials were torn through with arrows. Damn it, these arrows suppress my heavenly Tao energy, roared the ancient race rank 9 Celestial. As soon as he was struck, he felt like he was a balloon with a large hole. All his energy was rushing out of him. Just at that moment, another arrow pierced through his head, and he fell to the ground. He was filled with regret, but that couldn't change reality. He died in body and spirit. No! The other 2 rank 9 Celestials let out furious roars, but they didn't even last a few more breaths before being killed. It wasn't that they were weak, but that they were facing too many other powerful existences. In front of this absolute power, they had no chance of surviving. Gui Yen fled, hearing the others' unwilling cries. His hair stood on end, and he was filled with terror. He thought that he was also about to be killed. Yet unexpectedly, the spirit race warriors didn't chase him after killing the other three. Not only did they not chase, but even the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow, claimed to be unrivaled in speed, wasn't chasing him. He fled for his life. The spirit race warriors immediately turned toward the battlefield and went to assist upon seeing Gui Yen flee. The reason they had killed everyone except for Gui Yen was thanks to Long Chen's orders. Gui Yen fled, not even returning to the battlefield. He didn't alert Peng Wanxing or Sha Guangyan of his failure. Instead, he went straight toward the exit of the spirit world. Gui Yen was now completely terrified of Long Chen. Whether it was in terms of wits or martial might, he was now afraid of him. Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing had only come up with the plan to sneak attack them at the moment, but Long Chen had long since laid down a trap, waiting for these experts to fall into it. Such an enemy was too terrifying. He felt that the only reason he had survived was thanks to the corrupt god's blessing. He no longer dared to be enemies with Long Chen. In fact, he didn't even have the courage to see him again. He wanted to flee back to the martial heaven continent, back to the corrupt path. He had to report everything that had happened here. Flames continuously burst out of Long Chen as he spread them through the air. From a distance, it was like a flame god was shooting out an endless torrent of golden meteors at the magical beasts. The magical beasts were too numerous, and even with Long Chen's efforts, a lot of them were charging through his flames. However, after going through his flames, they were severely weakened, and the Dragon Blood Legion killed them easily. In fact, as he unleashed his flame attacks, Long Chen still had time to gather some corpses. At this time, the world trees in the primal chaos space were all about the same height of 3,000 meters. There was now a thriving green forest. Oh, they already made their move. Long Chen suddenly sensed many more fruits appearing on the heavenly Dao tree in the black soil. He didn't need Cloud's report to know what had happened over there. The heavenly Dao tree was also growing stronger. It was actually able to absorb the heavenly Dao energy of slain celestials from such an immense distance now. 3 rank 9 heavenly Dao fruits. It should be close to the end. Long Chen quickly saw 3 rank 9 heavenly Dao fruits appear. There was nothing new from the heavenly Dao tree for a while. Long Chen nodded and sent a spiritual message to Chu Yao and Meng Qi. In the distance, Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan were staring closely at the battlefield. They didn't have the slightest idea that the troops they had sent had long since been annihilated. They were still waiting for the sneak attack from the back before launching an all-out attack from the front. Instead, all they were witness to was Long Chen repeatedly unleashing flames. There wasn't the slightest bit of disorder in the Dragon Blood Legion's fighting. Why haven't they attacked yet? It should be about time, said Peng Wanxing impatiently. Just wait. I did tell them to go around very far so that they wouldn't be noticed. It'll take them a bit of time, said Sha Guangyan. The two of them continued watching closely. This was a world-shaking battle. Not only were the Dragon Blood warriors powerful, but the millions of Spirit Race warriors were also quite strong. The Spirit Race army would be left to the Dark Forest's magical beasts in a bit, so the two of them only need to keep watch on Long Chen. As soon as he was thrown off balance by their sneak attack, they would kill him. Just as they were staring intently at the battlefield, a snaking wooden stake passed underground from beneath the battlefield to beneath them. The wooden stake was like a serpent. The slightest crack appeared on the earth as its head reached the surface. 2 small holes appeared on the wooden stake, seeming to be eyes. It looked around. It saw the ancient race, corrupt path, and ancient family alliances experts floating in the air, staring at the battlefield. They didn't notice what was happening beneath them. After observing the situation, the wooden stakes slowly retreated underground. It was originally an inch thick, but now it began to thicken. Because everyone's attention was on the battlefield, they didn't notice a small piece of earth beneath them starting to bulge slightly. As the wooden stake thickened, the bulge of earth grew. But this small bulge wasn't particularly rare in this terrain. Once the wooden stake had become 3 meters thick, it stopped growing. Instead, it became hollow, creating a wooden passageway. Long Chen, Meng Qi, and Chu Yao silently slipped through the wooden channel. When they reached the end, Long Chen nodded to Meng Qi. Meng Qi took a deep breath and slowly formed many complicated hand seals. Her spirit strength began to circulate. The three-head nine-eye illusion spirit beast in her spiritual space suddenly quivered. Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan, as well as the other experts of the ancient races, ancient family alliance, and corrupt path, were currently staring at the battlefield intently. Peng Wanxing suddenly yawned. After watching for so long, he felt bored, and his eyelids felt a bit heavy. The others were also weary. Some people were starting to nod off. Watch out! We've fallen for a soul-bewitching art. Sha Guangyan suddenly cried out, his voice stabbing into their ears like needles. Everyone was instantly startled awake. Their expressions completely changed. In the instant that they awoke, countless black and white spears were shooting at them. These spears were dozens of meters long and thinner at the front than they were at the back. They whistled through the air at them. These spears weren't actually spears. They were the mouthparts of the spotted ghost mosquitoes. They were extremely hard and sharp. Dodge! It was too late. The spotted ghost mosquitoes' mouthparts became the spears that reaped their lives. Tens of thousands of the mouthparts pierced through these experts' bodies. The mouthparts immediately unleashed their poison when piercing a person's body. This poison was not inferior to the golden tail underground centipedes at all. It instantly paralyzed people. Like shooting stars, the mouthparts pierced through the entire army, slaying many of them. The mouthparts seemed to be alive, flying through the bodies of one expert after another. Anyone who was struck would stiffen and then collapse to the ground, their souls dissipating. They weren't killed from the poison, but from the spiritual strength attached to the mouthparts. The main thing was that Meng Qi was too kind. Even when facing enemies, she preferred that they died painless deaths. If the poison slowly killed them, it would be much more painful. Kill that woman. Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan were the first to react. They roared and charged at Meng Qi. Meng Qi was like a specter that had appeared in the air. Under her control, the mouthparts were deadly weapons. Listening to Long Chen's suggestion, she had gathered all the spotted ghost centipede's mouthparts and placed her spiritual mark on them. Although they weren't true soul items, nor had they been nourished by her soul, having them shoot out in a straight line was very simple for her. For this, many of the mouthparts to shoot at wherever there were the most enemies, many of them were slain. Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan were infuriated. They couldn't figure out how Meng Qi had appeared here. She had clearly been on the other side of the battlefield just now. How had she appeared here? However, there was no time to consider this question. Just now, Meng Qi had used a soul art to make them feel tired, causing their sense of alarm to sharply drop before attacking. All three powers on their side had suffered huge losses in an instant. The two of them didn't hesitate to attack her. Peng Wanxing was halfway there when a figure appeared before him. That figure came without any warning and without any killing intent. The figure raised a hand. Long Dashpao. Long Chen's hand viciously slapped across Peng Wanxing's face. He shot back like a shooting star. Long Chen's arrival caused everyone to feel even more shocked. They looked back at the battlefield to see that Long Chen was still over there, wrapped in flames and fighting intensely. How had another Long Chen appeared here? Sha Guangyan was about to attack him when Long Chen summoned lightning wings and chased after Peng Wanxing. Endless falling wood. Just as everyone was shocked by Long Chen's arrival, the ground burst apart, and wooden stakes flew into the air like dragons, attacking Peng Wanxing. Chu Yao! Sha Guangyan was startled again. Long Chen, Meng Qi, and Chu Yao had all come to launch a sneak attack on them. They were caught completely off guard. The slightest hesitation from his shock allowed Chu Yao's wooden stakes to wind together and form a spherical cage around the two of them. The cage then shot into the distance, leaving the battlefield. They've dragged away our leaders. Let's get them! Shouted an ancient race rank 9 celestial. Don't panic. We first have to kill that woman. She's just a rank 9 celestial. Cried another. There were 11 rank 9 celestials here, while Meng Qi was not an Empyrean. Now that she was left here all alone, she was definitely dead. Kill! Everyone charged toward Meng Qi. Meng Qi formed a new hand seal, and all the spotted ghost mosquitoes' mouthparts flew back to her, forming a huge barrier that blocked them. Boom! The barrier was immediately attacked by all the experts. Unable to bear such an impact, it instantly blew apart. Where is she? The mouthparts were smashed apart, but Meng Qi had vanished, stunning them. She's already over there. Meng Qi's figure once again appeared on the other side of the battlefield. They had no idea how Meng Qi had escaped from right under their noses. Meng Qi had naturally slipped away thanks to the channel created by Chu Yao. This was the plan Long Chen had come up with. Although Meng Qi's offensive power was shocking, her defensive power was too low. She couldn't handle the attacks of so many people. After she had unleashed her killing move, Meng Qi had immediately jumped back into the wooden channel, and Chu Yao sent her back to the original battlefield. After sending Meng Qi back, Chu Yao closed the channel. No one else could go through it now. What do we do now? Long Chen had taken away Peng Wanxing, and Chu Yao had taken away Sha Guangyan. They had clearly decided to bring their fight somewhere far away to avoid affecting anyone here. Now that two of their leaders were brought away, the rest of them were an army without a leader. Whatever. Generals against generals, and soldiers against soldiers. We'll kill the Dragonblood Legion, said an ancient family expert, taking the lead in charging to the battlefield. However, his expression wasn't one of hatred or anger, but greed. They had all begun to long for the Dragonblood Legion's weapons. Now they could openly kill them for their treasures. With one person taking the lead, the others all roared and charged at the Dragonblood Legion. Their eyes were all filled with greed as they stared at the Dragonblood Legion's weapons. The majority of them had second-rate king items, and only a few amongst them were in possession of top-grade king items. As for ancestral items, only a few rank 9 celestials were qualified to possess one. But every member of the Dragonblood Legion was carrying a weapon beyond the level of king item. Thus, these experts were naturally greedy for them. The Corrupt Path, Ancient Race, and Ancient Family Alliance's experts all rushed toward the Dragonblood Legion. They quickly encountered each other. Idiot, I've been waiting for a long time. Come and face your deaths. Guoran went to greet them first. Armed to his teeth, Guoran was like a metal monster, slashing his blade at the head of a rank 9 celestial. A turtle only knows how to hide in its shell. The rank 9 celestial sneered and slashed a blood-colored sword at Guoran. Boom! The power of Guoran's slash was shocking. The rank 9 celestial was actually blown away. The rank 9 celestial had just stabilized himself when his expression changed. A wind blade had silently appeared at the back of his head. Not good. He hastily dodged. But just as he did so, Guoran's saber slashed toward his waist. Guoran's attack was timed perfectly with the wind blade, and the rank 9 celestial could only dodge one. There was no third option. The rank 9 celestial was infuriated. He hated himself for being too fast and abandoning the others behind him. Now he didn't have a single helper beside him. This rank 9 celestial was a powerful figure in his own right, and he didn't panic even in this situation. Not saying a word, he dodged the wind blade while ignoring Guoran's saber. Instead, his own sword slashed toward Guoran's neck. That was the weakest spot on Guoran's armor. A person's head had to be able to turn, and it was the same as the wrist, elbow, knee, and crotch areas of the armor. Allowing those parts to remain agile meant that they were the weakest defensively. The rank 9 celestial concentrated all his power on his ancestral item sword. This attack would definitely cut off Guoran's head if it landed. This was a suicidal attack of exchanging his life for his opponent's. But it was his only way out of his current predicament. Theoretically, if Guoran's head was normal, he would give up his attack and dodge or block. But Guoran didn't retreat, nor did his attack change. Having dodged the wind blade that would have struck his head and thus killed him, the rank 9 celestial was instead cut in two by Guoran's saber. A cracking sound also came from Guoran's neck. That was the sound of bones breaking. Guoran was sent flying back. Guoran! Guyang cried out. He had been a bit too slow, and now he didn't even know if Guoran was still alive. He immediately smashed his spear at that rank 9 celestial. Having been cut in two, the rank 9 celestial was still shocked that Guoran had chosen to exchange lives with him. While still stunned, he was blown apart by Gu Yang's attack. A faint figure appeared amongst the blood mist. It was the rank 9 celestial soul. He tried to flee, but a spiritual arrow pierced him, causing his soul to dissipate. Guoran! Gu Yang pulled Guoran up, crying out crazily. His eyes were completely red. Stop shaking me. I just reattached my neck, and you're going to shake it off again. Guoran's familiar voice rang out from inside the armor. Gu Yang was delighted to hear Guoran's voice. As long as he was alive, it was fine. After all, that had been the full-strength attack of a rank 9 celestial. However, it couldn't be said that Guoran was fine. The bones in his neck had been crushed and his skull had cracked. That attack had truly been vicious. Guoran's armor had 8 coils of soft metal around it that were extremely tough yet allowed him to retain his agility. This kind of soft metal was present around all his joints, even his knuckles. That was why Guoran was able to keep his body nimble even in his armor. But now, a large hole had been cut into the armor over his neck, and 2 of the soft metal coils had been severed. However, high risk signified high reward. If Guoran hadn't done this, then that rank 9 celestial wouldn't have been slain by Gu Yang and Meng Qi's follow-up. There was no need for Guoran to circulate his heavenly Tao energy to heal. In just a breath, his bones had healed. Endless life energy flowed through his body, healing his injury. I'm fine. Brother, this is a fierce battle that will require our full power. Kill our strongest enemies, or our brothers will be in danger, said Guoran, twisting his neck and feeling that it was good enough to keep fighting. All right, let's continue killing. Gu Yang nodded. He knew that this battle was the most dangerous one so far. The fierce magical beasts weren't the problem. The biggest threat came from the army of ancient races, corrupt path, and ancient family alliance. Long Chen and Chu Yao had separated Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan from the battlefield for fear of them attacking the Dragonblood warriors. That would cause huge casualties in the Dragonblood Legion. First, kill that soul cultivator. She's our greatest threat, shouted a rank 9 celestial from the corrupt path. He and 2 other rank 9 celestials immediately went to attack Meng Qi. This time, they were smarter and didn't dare to charge out on their own. If that first rank 9 celestial hadn't been so greedy and charged out alone, he wouldn't have been killed. The 3 of them had just approached Meng Qi when a bird cry resounded through the air. A huge figure descended from the sky, a dazzling rainbow light shining from its body. It's the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. Boom! Cloud's wings slammed down, and the 3 of them hastily brandished their weapons. However, they were still blown away. Flower of the underworld, reaper of souls. Sea of flowers, blooming limitlessly. Meng Qi formed hand seals, a soft chant coming from her lips. She looked like a celestial fairy. A huge flower bud appeared over her head. The flower's entire body was pitch black, and it slowly bloomed. As it bloomed, the world became chaotic. The bloody ground vanished. The corpses vanished. The roaring of the magical beasts vanished. It felt like the world had entered a static space. Here, time was forever still. The only thing present here was death, patiently waiting for them. The flower reached full bloom and then slowly wilted. Meng Qi's face was pale, and tears of blood could be seen flowing from her eyes. It was a ghastly sight as it dripped down her jade-like face. When the black flower finally fully wilted, the world regained its original clamor. It was like what had happened just now was an illusion that had passed in the blink of an eye. When the illusion faded, a huge mass of corrupt experts had fallen to the ground. Their expressions were still shocked. As their minds faded into eternal oblivion, the sight of the blood pouring down a fairy's face was the only thing they could recall. The experts from the ancient races, corrupt path, and ancient family alliance were all affected. Anyone without strong enough spiritual strength fell silently to the ground, their souls extinguished. Their lives had wilted along with the flower. They vanished from this world. This was an absolutely terrifying attack that covered the entire battlefield. Less than 200,000 of the experts were left standing on the battlefield. Their figures now appeared isolated, standing so far apart. Even a huge mass of magical beasts fell to the ground. Corpses covered 10,000 miles of the battlefield. Sister Meng-Chi. Tang Wan'er let out a startled cry and rushed over to Meng-Chi's side. Tears of blood were still flowing from Meng-Chi's eyes, which had lost their luster. "Are your eyes all right?" Tang Wan'er felt incomparable grief. She had no idea what kind of terrifying technique Meng-Chi had used to instantly kill so many of their enemies. But it seemed that she had also suffered a terrifying backlash. Her eyes were blind. Don't worry. I can use my spiritual strength as my eyes. Focus on killing our enemies, or the Dragon Blood Legion will be in danger, said Meng-Chi as she flew into the air. Cloud let out a furious bird cry and appeared beneath her, carrying her on its back. It spread its wings and attacked the 3 rank 9 Celestials. Tang Wan'er didn't tarry and attacked one of the ancient race's rank 9 Celestials. Gu Yang, Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, and the recently recovered Guoran each picked out a rank 9 Celestial to fight. Meng-Chi's terrifying attack had emptied the battlefield. However, there was still an endless stream of magical beasts from the dark forest that was charging in without regard. Right now, the ancient races, Corrupt Path, and Ancient Family Alliance all had 9 rank 9 Celestials. Meng-Chi and Cloud were fighting against 3 of them. Just now, she had used the power of the 3-head 9-eye illusion spirit beast to activate a terrifying killing technique. But the power of this technique had surpassed her limit. The backlash had blinded her eyes and given her a mental blow. Now she felt like needles were stabbing into her mind, but she endured it to continue fighting. In her current state, she couldn't launch direct attacks against the 3 of them. But she could use her spiritual strength to affect their tempos and give Cloud more opportunities to attack. Having cultivated in the myriad spirit diagram, Cloud's power was extremely terrifying. Under Meng-Chi's lead, the 2 of them weren't at the slightest disadvantage against 3 rank 9 Celestials. On the other side, Tang Wan'er, Guoran, Gu Yang, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan were all fighting a rank 9 Celestial each. They were all tied up with their own opponents. However, there was still a rank 9 Celestial who managed to reach the Dragon Blood Legion. He was an expert from the Ancient Family Alliance. Shen Tian Dao Sect, today, you'll pay the price for killing Luo Mingho. The Ancient Family Alliance expert wielded a long battle axe. With a single swing of his battle axe, a dozen of the Dragon Blood warriors were blown back, coughing up blood. Not bad. Not even one of you died from that. Then try to keep receiving my attacks. The Ancient Family expert laughed and his aura suddenly soared. The battle axe in his hand began to shine as he actually activated a portion of his ancestral item's power. This attack was many times more terrifying than the last. Get out of the way. One of the squad leaders charged forward to receive this attack alone. He knew this attack was something others couldn't receive. If they tried, they would simply be killed. You think you can stop me? What a joke! Sneered the Ancient Family expert. His battle axe didn't pause and mercilessly fell. Bang! The squad leader's sword exploded, while the battle axe merely paused for a moment before continuing down to strike his body. His armor was blown apart along with his body. The squad leader had died. However, that terrifying attack had been stopped with just his death. The surrounding Dragon Blood warriors were only sent flying, and none of them died. Squad leader. Seeing their squad leader sacrifice his life to protect them, the others let out bestial roars. Haha, the Dragon Blood Legion really has money. Not only do you have such powerful weapons, but you even have such powerful armor. The Ancient Family expert laughed. At this time, the other experts from the ancient races, the Corrupt Path, and Ancient Families arrived, each of them filled with greed. Kill. Avenge the squad leader, roared a Dragon Mark warrior, tears covering his face. He and the others had joined the Dragon Blood Legion later, and they felt great respect and admiration for the Dragon Blood warriors that had started out with Long Chen in the Eastern Wasteland. It was the dragon blood warriors that had led them through the initial slaughter and strengthened their resolve. They had been their teachers. They had taught them the essence of the martial path. They had been like big brothers looking after their little brothers. Whenever the latter had encountered danger, the former had been the ones to bear it. Even after everyone had grown to this point, the original dragon blood warriors still looked after them like little brothers. And today, to protect them, one of them had died. Despite knowing he would die, he still sacrificed himself. Ever since they had officially joined the Dragon Blood Legion in the Central Plains, they had experienced many battles but had always maintained a zero-casualty record. Their squad leader's death was unacceptable to them. A group of ants also dares to call for revenge? Just die. The ancient family expert laughed at the Dragon Blood Legion's warriors who were charging at him. His battle axe slashed down once more. The 9-flower manifestation behind him revolved as endless heavenly Tao energy poured into his ancestral item. This attack was equally unblockable. Boom. The ancient family expert was just about to kill everyone before him when the ground beneath him suddenly swelled up, sending him flying into the air and causing his attack to miss. All warriors, hear my orders. Retreat back to the defensive line of the spirit race warriors and spirit beasts. Guoran cried out new orders. A small river flowed within the surrounding mountains. Farmland lined the river, and with the sun's warm rays already lighting up the land, the farmers had long since gotten to work. The oxen were walking back and forth on the farms, pulling on the plows that broke apart the earth. But the farms had water in them, and as the oxen traveled, the muddy water splashed. Whether it was the oxen or the farmers, they were all covered in mud. One farmer appeared to be in his 30s. Through the layers of mud, it was vaguely possible to see he was a suntanned man busy with his honest labor. He was constantly shouting, directing the oxen. Only once the land was level could he begin planting the seedlings. This entire year's crop depended on the spring, so he couldn't waste this sunlight. "Dad!" Suddenly, a tender shout rang out. The man turned to see a little girl who appeared to be between 3 or 4 years old running over to him on the embankment between farms. She held 2 wild fruits in her hand as she excitedly shouted. The little girl wore her hair in pigtails, and she wore a cotton jacket. Although it was spring, this early spring morning was still a bit chilly. She was a beautiful girl who seemed like an adorable doll, with her jade-like face and her crescent eyebrows. Her eyes were the perfect proportion of white and black. "Little Yen, why have you run over here? Look, you dirted your jacket. Aren't you afraid your mom will spank you?" The suntanned man immediately smiled, looking at the little girl with love. Even his tiredness was swept away by her arrival. "Mom won't hit me. I came here to bring Dad some fruit." "Careful!" the suntanned man cried out. The embankment was very muddy, and the girl slipped and fell. Those 2 fruits she was carrying fell into the mud, and even her dress was dirted. She immediately began to bawl. The man hastily ran over and wiped her dress a few times. Picking her up, he placed her on a larger rock to the side of the embankment. "Little Yen, what hurts?" "Tell Dad," he said, worriedly looking at her. "I'm sorry, Dad, little Yen is too stupid. I got the fruit dirty?" Little Yen cried, obviously feeling both embarrassed and angry from having her good deed ruined. Hearing that, the man immediately relaxed and smiled. "What's so dirty about them?" The man directly dug the 2 fruits from the mud, wiped them a few times, and then took a big bite. "Dad, they're dirty. Mom said that if you eat dirty things, they'll grow insects inside your stomach." "I'll go wash them in the river," cried the girl. That's something that will only happen to children. Your dad's stomach is strong and he can eat them without worry. The man patted his chest confidently. "Really? Dad is amazing." The girl actually believed him and looked at him worshipfully. "Come, give Dad a hug. Dad will bring you home and have your mom change your clothes. If you're so dirty, you won't look like a little fairy." The man took off his outer clothes and lifted the girl. He was afraid of getting the girl's clothes dirty. He clearly doted on her. "Dad, am I holding up your work?" she asked. "Of course not." I've already worked for a while and I needed a break. Let alone your dad, even the oxen need a rest, comforted the man. Dad really is the best. The girl leaned over to kiss him on the cheek. Don't. Your dad is dirty, so you can't kiss him. If you eat any dirt, bugs will grow in your stomach. The man hastily dodged with a laugh. Then I'll wait until Dad is clean. The girl hung onto his neck. Carrying the girl, the man crossed the farmland and arrived on the path to return to the village. Hey, Lung Arii, this girl of yours has such pale skin. It's a completely different color from yours. It couldn't be that your wife wasn't loyal to you, right? Joked a fellow farmer who was busy in the fields when he saw them passing. These farmers all liked to joke around, and in truth, they were very close to each other. This joke didn't harbor any ill intent. They were all used to it. Screw off. You and your wife are both so pale, but your child looks like he is made of mud. I heard that he fell once, and it was impossible to tell him apart from the ground. It was only the next day that you found him. You're clearly just jealous, laughed the man who had been called Lung Arii. Hee, my second son is 2 years older than your girl. Those ages just happen to be suitable. What do you think about setting them up? That farmer's eyebrows rolled several times. Don't even think about it. This girl of mine is like a heavenly fairy. But your son really is not bad. He'll definitely be a capable hunter in the future. What do you mean? He'll be invisible once he's tossed to the ground, and even prey won't notice him. You. Haha. Lung Arii laughed and left, bringing his daughter into the village. The village wasn't very large. There were only a few dozen households. They lived off the land, relying entirely on farming, hunting, and gathering. Once the two of them arrived, a few women looking after children immediately smiled toward them, praising the girl for being smart and attractive. Although they often saw her, it always felt like it wasn't enough. The girl was also very adorable, cutely calling them third aunt, second aunt, and so on. These villagers lived simple and honest lives here, and they all got along with each other. Aya, my little girl, what happened to you? Are you all right? A woman immediately walked over upon seeing them. Seeing her current appearance, she was both angered and distressed. She's fine. She just fell down and got her clothes dirty. Why don't you go ask Mom to change your clothes? I'll get back to work. Lung Arii rubbed the girl's head and then left. The girl's mother brought out a set of clean clothes for little Yen. She had just helped her change into them when the sound of rapid hoofbeats rang out along with several startled cries. What are you doing? Lung Arii was amongst them, but after a muffled groan, his voice was cut off. Little Yen, don't move. Mom will go out to take a look. Little Yan's mother hastily ran out of the courtyard to see over 10 black-robed men. Each of them was large and stocky, and they were currently shouting something. Little Yan's mother quickly saw Lung Arii on the ground. Arii, cried Little Yan's mother. She ran over to his side and saw that his nose was sunken in. His teeth had been knocked out of his mouth and his face was covered with blood. The entire village was panicked. They had never seen such strong people. The villagers quickly grabbed their children and stared fearfully at the black-robed men. Some of those black-robed men carried swords on their backs, some carried sabers on their waists. They seemed like evil fiends to these villagers. Following the panic in the village, the men working on the farms all rushed back. Seeing Lung Arii lying on the ground, they shouted furiously, "What are you doing?" One man had just opened his mouth when one of those black-robed men with a scar on his face unsheathed his saber and cut off that man's head. They're killers. One of the shouting women was directly cut in two by another man. The villagers were all scared stupid. The sound of crying and terrified shouts echoed. How vexing. We were actually sent to this region. How are we supposed to find any good seedlings amongst these peasants? One of the black-robed men spat on the ground as his gaze swept across the quivering villagers. His gaze was focused on the children the women were carrying. A cold light shone in his eyes. What a waste of time. Kill them all. Such inferior people aren't fit to live in this world. They should make room for useful people, said the scar-faced man who seemed to be the leader. As he spoke, he randomly slashed his saber. One man was directly killed. I won't let you. One village man attacked one of the black-robed men with a farming pick. But he had only just raised it when a sword pierced his chest. That man looked at the sword piercing his chest and unwillingly collapsed. Dad! A 7-year-old boy ran over, wailing. With a single kick from the black-robed man, that child was sent flying. One of the black-robed men arrived in front of Lung Arii. At this time, Lung Arii had just been woken by his wife. Seeing the black-robed men, he immediately pushed his wife behind him and shouted, "If you have any guts, then come at us. Leave the women alone. The weak don't have the qualifications to set conditions." The black-robed man kicked Lung Arii in the chest, and he and his wife were both sent tumbling back. The black-robed man raised his sword again. It began to fall toward Lung Arii's neck without the slightest mercy. "Don't hurt Daddy." At some unknown point, the little girl had also run over. She stood in front of Lung Arii's body. She stared at the black-robed man with her black and white eyes. A courageous light shone in those eyes, a light without the slightest fear. Seeing little Yen run over, Lung Arii was startled and hastily pulled her back, giving her to his wife. "Bring little Yen away." Little Yen's mother picked her up and immediately fled for her life. The black-robed man was about to chase when Lung Arii grabbed his waist and swept out his leg. In his carelessness, the black-robed man actually tripped to the ground. "Die!" With a furious roar, that black-robed man smashed a fist at Lung Arii's back. The sound of bones breaking rang out and Lung Arii's spine was instantly destroyed. He was just an ordinary person, while his opponent was a cultivator. But even with his spine broken, even as he lost all connection to his lower body, Lung Arii continued to hang onto the black-robed man. Boom! In his fury, the black-robed man's body suddenly shook. A powerful chi wave directly shattered Lung Arii's arms, and he was sent flying, wildly vomiting blood. Lung Arii smashed into a wall. His body was completely deformed and no longer looked human. He stopped breathing, but his eyes were still looking in the direction his wife had fled. They were filled with longing. "Dad!" Little Yen let out a heart-rending cry as she tried to escape from her mother's hold. But she was too weak and she was carried away. "Where do you think you're going?" Suddenly, little Yen's mother trembled. A sword had stabbed into her back and out through her chest. The tip left behind a shallow cut on little Yen's cheek. "Mom!" Little Yen cried out, looking at her mother. Her mother's eyes were filled with death, and her mouth opened and closed as if she wanted to say something, but she was unable to. Her mother's body collapsed on the ground, her blood dyeing the vegetables. This place was her family's garden. "Little girl, you're not bad-looking, but you don't have any spiritual chi fluctuations. You don't even have a spirit root. But useless. You can die now." That black-robed man looked at the crying little Yen and ruthlessly sent a kick her way. She was sent flying and crashed into a wall. This kick of his was something that would kill any ordinary adult, let alone a child. The man didn't even give her a second glance. He turned and went in another direction. He had no idea that the girl hadn't died. She stood back up. Blue lines began to appear in her originally black and white eyes. A sickle appeared in her hand, and she ran over at him. That black-robed man was looking over the scene, looking to see if there were any fish that had escaped their nets. He actually didn't realize that a little girl was stealthily getting closer to him. "Li Laosen, look out!" Suddenly, one of his fellows let out a startled cry as he noticed that the girl behind him had already raised the sickle in her hand. Before Li Laosen could even react, that sickle struck. It was unknown from where that girl even got the power, but that heavy sickle used for cutting firewood sliced cleanly through his neck. Li Laosen let out a startled cry, and without even thinking about it, he slashed his sword behind him. It was an instinctive reaction. Regretfully, those instincts were for use on adults. His slash was aimed at his opponent's waist, but the person attacking him was only a child. His sword swept right over her head. Let alone injuring her, it instead caused him to stagger and fall on the ground. His head fell to the ground. Just as it landed, he saw that sickle growing even larger in his eyes. Then he turned stiff, never to move again. As if she didn't realize he had already died, the little girl continued to crazily hack her blade down on the body. Blood dyed her entire body. The blue color in her eyes grew, and there was even a faint pulse to them now. With the blood splashing onto her body, she felt inexhaustible energy within her. She continued hacking her blade. Li Laosan was already turned into mincemeat, but she still didn't stop. Her hands were covered in blood. It wasn't just Li Laosan's, but also her own. The skin on her hands had been ground away, but she didn't seem to be able to feel the pain. She hacked away, each slash stronger than the last. In the end, her sickle brought with it a whistling sound that even caused the other black-robed men to be stunned. A little girl had used a sickle to hack a fourth heaven stage of chi condensation expert to death. That scene was too bizarre. Eventually, she suddenly collapsed on the ground, unconscious. Only then did the black-robed men walk over. Seeing Li Laosan's mincemeat corpse, as well as the little girl who seemed like an adorable doll, they didn't know what to think. This scene was chilling. This girl's extremely bizarre. Perhaps we have found a treasure. If she's a supreme seedling, all of us will have contributed a great merit. The scar-faced man picked up the girl and left with the others. The black-robed men had left. But the originally peaceful village had been turned into a land of death. Other than that little girl, the others had all died. It was dark and damp. A moldy smell filled her nose. It was extremely disgusting. The little girl suddenly awoke. "Dad, Mom," she cried out. She found that her voice had become hoarse as if she hadn't drunk any water in many days. It felt like smoke was about to come from her throat. Her head was still dazed. She once more fell asleep. In her dreams, she saw her mom and dad playing with her. She also saw her fellow villagers celebrating. It was the new year. All of them were smiling happily. Suddenly, the entire world darkened. It was so dark that it was impossible to see anything. She panicked and began to cry, and she tried to find her mom and dad. As a result, she quickly found their corpses. "This isn't real. It must be a dream," she cried. After crying and crying, at some unknown point, she realized there was someone in front of her. She raised her head, but she wasn't able to see that person's face. All she could tell was that it was a woman. She was very tall with an excellent figure. She had long hair, and she seemed to be holding something in her hands. "Who are you? Why did you kill my parents?" shouted the girl as she pounced on that figure. But intense pain in her head woke her up from her dream. She realized she was locked in a cage, and it was constantly rocking. She should be on some sort of cart. A sharp rocking of the cart had caused her head to slam against a wooden pillar. Blood was flowing out. Feeling that blood, she panicked. She almost called out for her mom when she suddenly recalled that her mom was already dead. Her dad was also dead. "Release me. I want to go find my mom and dad," she shouted, clutching the cage. The cover on the cage was removed. The blazing sunlight pierced her eyes, causing her to cry out. She hastily covered her eyes with her hands. "If you keep shouting, I'll feed you to the wolves." A vicious voice rang out. She didn't even have a chance to see from whom it came before the tarp was put back on. The cage once more became dark. Her stomach growled. But she bitterly endured, not making a sound. After an unknown time, when she was so hungry that she was only half conscious, she felt the cage shake several times. Only then did she powerlessly open her eyes. She saw that a stocky man was carrying her cage as if she was just a wild animal. At the same time, she saw other cages. She saw a pair of frightened eyes in each one of them. A boy who appeared 7 or 8 years old shyly opened his mouth, but he only had time to say a single word when he was beaten by a whip. His skin immediately split and he let out a pained shout. "No one said you could speak, so keep your mouths shut. If you want to live, remember this place's rules," said a man icily. The children in hundreds of cages immediately became so terrified that they didn't dare to make a sound. Even when their tears overflowed, they tightly clenched their mouths, not letting their sobs escape. A group of large men quickly carried the cages. They were even faster than horses, and they quickly crossed a mountain. They eventually reached their destination. After putting down their cages, a one-eyed man swept his gaze over them. He icily announced, "Your first mission is to survive for 7 days here. During this week, you'll have to find your own food and water. If you can't find anything to eat, there's an even simpler method. Human flesh isn't poisonous, and it's not as hard to eat as you think." This group of children looked at him with terror. It was unknown whether they could even understand what he was saying, but this group of people didn't care. After saying that, they directly opened the cages and then left without a second word. The little girl looked around. It was already dusk now, and it would quickly be dark. She felt an unprecedented loneliness. Thinking of her dead parents, she wanted to cry, but there were no more tears to be found in her eyes. "I want to live. I want to get revenge for my parents." She clenched her tiny fists and was the first to walk out. The other children saw that and also walked out. They wanted to find some fruits to relieve their hunger. But there were no fruit trees around. There weren't even any bodies of water. The girl quickly found a foot-tall plant as she advanced. She hastily bent down and dug it up. Her hands immediately began to bleed because they were still too tender. However, she bore it and continued digging. Eventually, she dug out a fist-sized ball. She recalled that this thing was called a potato, and it could be eaten. Her father had once dug some up for her to eat. She happily looked at it. She was just preparing to wipe off the dirt and eat it when a boy snatched the potato out of her hands. "That's mine," she cried. But the boy ignored her and also ignored the dirt on the potato. He directly bit into it, and it was gone in just 3 mouthfuls. The girl tearfully looked on. At this moment, her fists were quivering and blue ripples appeared in her eyes. "Little sister, I have 2 insect larvae here. You should eat them quickly." Just as the girl's fury was slowly gathering, a gentle voice rang out in her ears. The girl turned to see another girl a bit bigger than she was. She was holding 2 larvae in her hands. "Big sister, you..." The little girl didn't know what to do. "Oh shoo." The other girl hastily indicated for her to be quiet. Looking around, she pulled her behind a boulder. "Eat it quickly. This kind of larva can be eaten. If you're afraid, you can first kill them." The girl gave the 2 larvae to little Yen. Little Yen was truly hungry. Looking at these larvae, she directly swallowed them. Randomly chewing them a few times, she swallowed. "I didn't trick you, right?" "Although their flavor is a bit strange," the other girl said with a smile. "Big sister, I ate your food. What about you?" asked little Yen. "I've already eaten 3. This way we won't starve to death for now. How about we search for food together?" "I'm Gu Nianru. What's your name?" she asked. "Lung Yuan. I'm bigger than you, so you can call me Big Sister Nianru. And how about I call you Little Yen?" "That's good. My mom and dad called me that." Lung Yuan suddenly thought of her parents and her eyes immediately reddened. "Good sister, all of us that were brought here had all our family killed. We're all the same. Right now, if we want to live, we have to rely entirely on ourselves. Don't think about anything else. Just focus on finding food." Gu Nianru pulled on Lung Yuan, going deeper in search of food. Gu Nianru was only a year older than Lung Yuan, but she possessed a maturity and steadiness that didn't match her age. "Try to stay a bit further away from those bigger ones. Otherwise, your things will be snatched by them. In fact, they might even kill you to eat your flesh," said Gu Nianru. Lung Yuan quivered in fear. Eating people? Wasn't that something only fiends would do? That was what all the villagers had said. Going into a small mound, the 2 of them dug up some earthworms. But Gu Nianru didn't eat them, and she also didn't let Lung Yuan eat them. They wanted to first find water to drink. However, they were surrounded by wild mountains and there were no rivers. But Gu Nianru was very amazing. She managed to squeeze out a bit of water from some plant stalks, bringing relief to their completely parched throats. "Sister, how are you so amazing?" asked Lung Yuan a bit worshipfully. "My family was hunters. We relied on hunting to survive, and when I was just 3 years old, I learned how to set traps and capture prey with my dad. When we're severely dehydrated, we can't eat too much. Otherwise, we'll quickly die. So while we should continue looking for earthworms, we shouldn't eat them for now. We have to get some water first, said Gu Nian. She brought Leng Yuan in search of more vegetation, and she quickly squeezed out several more drops for them. The two of them only ate a few earthworms. Their situation was still terrible. When the sky darkened, they returned to their camp and entered their cages. Those cages were like their homes. They stayed in them to prevent wild beasts from eating them during the night. This night was extremely bitter. They were all starving and feeling cold. Leng Yuan even woke up several times because she heard strange sounds in the night, as well as a few chilling screams. Some children were constantly crying. When the sun finally lit up the sky again, the children began to crawl out of their cages. But there were several that didn't get up. One of them was that rather large boy that had snatched the potato Leng Yuan had dug up. He was already dead. He didn't find any water and ate too much. That's why he died, said Gu Nian. She pulled Leng Yuan away to continue searching for water. That little bit of water they had obtained yesterday wasn't even close to enough. Today, they had to find a greater source of water. Food was actually secondary. In the morning, the cold had condensed some dew. Gu Nian dragged her clothes across the ground, and they quickly became wet. Little Yen, open your mouth. Gu Nian wrung her clothes, squeezing out the water. Leng Yuan hastily opened her mouth. Seeing Gu Nian's actions, the other children quickly imitated her. But there wasn't much dew, so the water was very limited. Despite doing their best, Leng Yuan and Gu Nian had only drunk less than half a cup of water. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the dew quickly disappeared. But Leng Yuan and Gu Nian were reinvigorated. They went far afield, intentionally avoiding others so they could secretly eat a few more earthworms they had caught yesterday. At some point, Gu Nian saw a small, withered tree not far from them. She went over and snapped a branch, obtaining 2 sticks that were half a foot long. She then found a stone and smashed it a few times, making one side the stick more pointy. She then began grinding it against the stone. Big sister, what are you doing? Leng Yuan's eyes were wide open. She didn't understand. Gu Nian smiled slightly and didn't say anything. She continued grinding. Very quickly, she finished 2 wooden daggers. She held them in her hands and waved them around a few times. A pleased smile appeared on her face. These will be our secret weapons. If someone bullies us and wants to take our food, we'll kill them, said Gu Nian. I can't, Leng Yuan said fearfully. That's okay. I'll protect you. I have a little sister just as old as you, but I couldn't save her. This time, I'll definitely protect my sister. Gu Nian looked at Leng Yuan, her eyes a bit red as if she was reminiscing. The two of them climbed over a steep mountain. They were already several miles from their camp, and it was already an immense distance to travel for 2 children. This was also very dangerous. Having gone this far, they were exhausting their precious physical energy and water. But once they climbed this mountain, they began shouting in excitement. That was because they saw gourds growing out of a vine. Even Leng Yuan recognized this kind of vegetation. This kind of gourd was filled with water. The villagers would often use its shell to store things. There were over 10 of these gourds. The two of them immediately cut one off for each of them. Using their wooden daggers, they cut a small hole. Water immediately began spurting out, along with a faint sweet taste. The two of them didn't waste a single drop. All the liquid in the 2 gourds was sucked clean. They drank another one before stopping, completely satisfied. Leng Yuan suggested bringing one back, but Gu Nian told her not to. Although they had managed to drink their fill, their bodies were still too weak. Just drinking their fill once wasn't enough to recover. If they were noticed by others, these gourds wouldn't be theirs anymore. In fact, they might even be killed. The two of them decided to be safe and return according to their original path. This one trip took them the whole day. On the way, they ate the gourd's flesh to allay their hunger. Once they returned, they saw that a few people had disappeared. Furthermore, those that had died had also disappeared. The next day, Leng Yuan and Gu Nian once more went out. But Gu Nian chose to go along another path and then detour to the gourds. They had just finished one gourd when they heard footsteps. a group of large boys appeared. Seeing those gourds, their expressions immediately changed. They practically became fanatic. They charged up, and Gu Nianru pulled Leng Yuan away. Leng Yuan shouted, "But those are ours." Those children were like hungry wolves. They consumed all the gourds in practically an instant. Then they suddenly charged at Gu Nianru and Leng Yuan. Leng Yuan was too young, and she couldn't run quickly. She was quickly caught up to. One of the boys with many scars on his face seemed to be the leader, and he shouted, "Kill them!" The other boys immediately charged forward, a vicious light shining in their eyes. "You already snatched our water. Now what do you want?" shouted Leng Yuan. "We want to eat your flesh," roared one of them. He was the first one to charge and directly went after Leng Yuan, causing her to scream. However, he was just about to reach her when Gu Nianru's wooden dagger stabbed through his heart. His body stiffened and then slowly collapsed. That one attack was extremely vicious and sharp, stopping the boys immediately and turning them pale. Gu Nianru waved her dagger at them. There was still blood on it. She icily said, "That should have been enough for you. If you come at us again, we'll go all out. At the very least, we'll drag a few of you down with us." Those boys were scared stiff for a moment. Originally, they had thought that these two little girls were just two sheep. They hadn't expected them to have such vicious fangs. Before coming here, I already went through a round of elimination. There are dozens of people that died at my hands. If you don't believe me, you can try it. Gu Nianru stared closely at the scarred boy. For a moment, everyone was stunned by Gu Nianru's vicious change. She slowly retreated with Leng Yuan. Once they were far enough, they ran off. The boys stared as they went away. In the end, they also left, bringing along their fallen brethren's corpse. On the third day's morning, more people failed to wake up. Looking at those corpses, it was like they had already become numb to that scene. Everyone went out in search of food and water. Furthermore, the struggle between people only grew more intense. That was especially true when it came to Leng Yuan and Gu Nianru. Their group only contained 2 people, and Leng Yuan was too small. It was all too easy for others to treat them as prey. However, Gu Nianru displayed an extremely vicious side. That wooden daggers of hers touched blood several times, and that intimidated everyone. Later, no one dared to place their sights on them. Instead, they went to fight over food and water with the others. Because everyone's search range had increased so much, they had begun to find sources of food and water. It wasn't as scarce as before, but they needed as much food and water as possible so that they could get stronger. Otherwise, their things would be snatched away, and one of those things might be their lives. Here, there was nothing they could rely on except themselves. They couldn't trust in anything except power. 7 days passed. There had originally been hundreds of people, but now they were down to a few dozen. Only 1/10 of them had survived. Of those people, Leng Yuan was the weakest. If it hadn't been for Gu Nianru's protection, she would have long since died. Once the 7 days were up, the one-eyed man returned. He brought them away, and 3 days later, they arrived in a sect. There were tens of thousands of children standing in the plaza currently. At the center of the plaza was a statue that soared into the clouds. From today onwards, you're all followers of the corrupt god. Everything you have is the corrupt god's, and that includes your bodies and souls. More and more red-robed people appeared in the plaza. Every 3 steps they bowed. Each 9 steps they kowtowed. They were muttering some kind of strange scripture. A strange air filled heaven and earth. Leng Yuan and the others' nerves were stretched taut, and it was like some kind of formless energy was enveloping them. Grand corrupt God, please bestow your glory onto these children. Enlighten them on how to advance. From today onwards, they will no longer be sheep lost in the wild. An old man was kneeling in front of the statue and was also muttering a scripture. Leng Yuan didn't know that this was a kind of ceremony. All the children were befuddled as they looked at the statue. The ceremony took a full 2 hours, and during it, none of the children dared to move. Once the ceremony was finally over, all the children were forced together, and the scripture was taught to them. Corrupt God blessing, temper my body, make me fearless. Make me forget myself, make me forget the rest of the world. Everything the world has is bestowed by the god. Every blade of grass, every tree, every thread, every needle. The god graced me with my body, a body to follow heaven's laws. Eliminate the weak, a battle of survival of the fittest. The weak are only born for the strong. All life struggles, no one could understand it, but they did their best to memorize it. That was because the elder had just said that this ceremony was to offer sacrifice to the corrupt god. That person would only repeat it 3 times, and if they still couldn't memorize it, it meant they didn't know how to respect the corrupt god. Those who disrespected the corrupt god would be killed. There were over 1,000 words. After only repeating it 3 times, that person began testing people one by one. If anyone said one word wrong, they would be dragged away. It was said that they would be fed to magical beasts. Thus, whales began to rise. Little Yen, did you memorize it? Asked Gu Nianru stealthily. Yes. Leng Yueyen nodded. It was quickly their turn. The 2 of them smoothly passed the test. After that, they were split into a group of 500 people. Since you've memorized it from today onwards, you will no longer be orphans, but the god's children. Your parents weren't killed, they died to undertake the corrupt god's work. You can consider them heroes that died in battle. If they hadn't died, there would have been no way for you to realize what this world is. This world is emotionless, pitiless, and merciless. It is a world where the weak are only prey to the strong, and only the strong are respected. Compassion, duty, propriety, integrity? Those are hypocritical shams. Power is the only thing you need. With power, you can fulfill all your desires. Without power, you'll only be able to watch as the things you cherish the most are taken away by others. As for you, you'll be able to do nothing. Starting today, you'll form groups of 10 and be thrown deep into the mountains. You'll have to survive on your own for 2 years. Wild beasts roam about in those mountains, so whether or not you can survive depends on your own abilities. That expert directly sent them off after speaking. This was Leng Yueyen's first time seeing flying magical beasts. The fortunate thing was that she was in the same group as Gu Nianru. In their group of 10, there were 3 girls and 7 boys. They all listened to Gu Nianru, working together to find a source of water, forage for food, and build a shelter. These children who had originally enjoyed their parents' love had now begun to learn how to survive on their own. Fortunately, Gu Nianru was extremely experienced with hunting. When the 10 of them worked together, each day was better than the last. They began to form bonds between them, as if they were a family. In the beginning, they only dared to gather a few wild fruits. Once they found a source of water, they began building a shelter. They built traps around the shelter to prevent attacks from wild beasts. A month later, they began hunting for pheasants, rabbits, and other prey. Sometimes, they would even dare to attack wild boars. Living in that intense environment, Leng Yueyen learned many skills. Under Gu Nianru's guidance, she quickly became their group's second-in-command. She was strong and agile. Their shelter was attacked several times by wild beasts. Once a fierce black bear attacked and broken their traps. Under Gu Nianru and Leng Yueyen's guidance, they worked together to cut it down. The days passed one by one. They felt that these days were the happiest time of their lives after what they had experienced before. But happy days always passed by the quickest. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Leng Yueyen was already 5.5 years old. In this environment, she had grown a great deal. She had almost forgotten the pain of her past. But on this day, their nightmare returned. People came to bring them back. They tried to run, but they were all caught. They were brought back to the sect. After that, they were forced to consume various medicinal pills and take tests to evaluate their physical functions. The pain was enough for them to want to die. In this place, they were like animals that had to follow other people's orders. They wanted to rebel, but they didn't have the power. 3 days later, they were brought into a room. Next, someone came and called out 3 names. Once those 3 people left, they never returned. Leng Yueyen and Gu Nianru went out to search only to find them in a nearby valley. They were already dead. There were hundreds of other corpses with them. They should be the people whose talent wasn't good enough. They didn't have the qualifications to be raised, so they were killed, said Gu Nianru hatefully, clenching her fists. These bastards! Roared one boy. They were all infuriated. These were companions they had been with for 2 years. Seeing 3 of them die, they were incomparably distressed. Scram or die. Just at this moment, a red-robed man appeared, tossing 2 more corpses onto the pile. Leng Yueyan and the others returned to their wooden room, and then, more people brought them away again. It was another round of tests. After those tests, only 5 of their 7 remained. 2 more of them died. They despaired. In front of these powerful experts, their little bit of power was insignificant. Bastards, just wait until I get stronger. I'll definitely kill them all to get revenge. I've already remembered all their faces, said one boy through clenched teeth. The next day, the 5 of them were brought back to the plaza with hundreds of others. It was still the same group as 2 years ago, but now they numbered much less. 2 years had let them grow a great deal. They had become stronger, but the only thing in their eyes was endless hatred. They had obviously encountered the same thing as Leng Yueyan and the others. It was still the same elder that had held the ceremony back then. He smiled slightly. Now do you understand how important power is? Without power, you won't even be able to survive, let alone have freedom or dignity. However, you don't need to panic. Do you want revenge? Do you want revenge for your companions? Do you want to kill those people who were so cruel to you? Do you also want to kill me with them? That's also fine. Everyone is a follower of the corrupt God, and the corrupt God is fair. He will give all of you the chance to fulfill your wishes. The key point is whether or not you can grasp that chance. Starting today, you all have the right to cultivate. As long as you are strong enough, you can kill anyone here that you have enmity against, including myself. You are the seedlings that have been tested to have the greatest potential. But whether or not you can grow is up to yourselves. Now you have the chance to take the first step of your growth. Bathe in the corrupt God's favor. Let the divine ceremony begin. The corrupt God's statue began to shake slightly, and light began to rain from the sky. Those children began to quiver as that light sprinkled upon them. The blood in their bodies began to rapidly circulate. It felt like their bodies were overflowing with energy. Corrupt God, grace me with power. I am willing to become your most loyal servant. Shouted some people, their eyes red. Corrupt God, I am willing to offer up my everything to you, including my soul. Following the loud shouting of certain people, it was like the corrupt God had really heard them. The rain of light slowly condensed over them. The others saw that and followed suit. Shouts of solemn oaths rang throughout the air. Those people's voices turned hoarse, but they continued to scream. That was because they found that as they screamed, more light would gather over their bodies, and the power overflowing out of them grew even greater. Leng Yuan watched as the people around her screamed with greater and greater fervor. She noticed that when the light landed on her body, there was some kind of power that forced it back. She was unable to absorb it. Once the divine ceremony was over, they learned that they were the disciples of the corrupt God, also known as the Corrupt Path's disciples. Their sect was called Blood Fiend Gate. Blood Fiend Gate didn't split its disciples into inner or outer disciples. Everyone was the same. They started cultivating and training together. The elders imparted the qi condensation techniques to them. Qi condensation was the first step. As for the qi sensing realm, after bathing in the corrupt God's divine grace, they had already passed that. Their cultivation speed was incredibly fast, and their foundation was extremely solid. During this time, they had plenty of food, a good dwelling, and practically anything else that they wanted. In just 1 month, Leng Yuan had reached the 7th heaven stage of qi condensation. That was the most frightening thing about the God's blessing. Each of these people had been without the slightest foundation. But having experienced countless life and death trials, all their potential was carved out. Gu Nianru was even stronger. She had already reached the 9th heaven stage. To reach the 9th heaven stage of qi condensation at just 6 years old was extremely terrifying. Once all the disciples were gathered again, they were no longer children, but cultivators. Although they were young and immature, The pain and suffering of their childhood had allowed them to mature very early. At just 6 or 7 years old, they had the same stature as someone over 10 years old. Their eyes were cold and sharp. They also had their own weapons, as well as any battle skills they wanted to cultivate. Compared to a month ago, they were like completely different people. Excellent. You should all have sensed the power of the divine blessing now. It was the corrupt God that changed your everything. Only by bathing under the light of the corrupt God can you become this world's master, becoming the master of your own fate. A month ago, I said the corrupt God would give you a chance to get revenge. That time has come. The elder pointed to a mass of people standing in the distance. They were all chi condensation experts. Do you see them? The people who captured you, the people who killed your families, they're right there. Your chance to get revenge has come. You can challenge them. It will be a fair fight. Life and death will be up to fate. It just depends on whether you have the courage, said the elder. I want to challenge you. Seeing the man with the scar on his face, killing intent erupted out of Leng Yuan. That was precisely one of the people that had killed her parents. Even if he was burned to ash, she would still recognize that face. Leng Yuan immediately thought of how her parents had died miserably. Looking at this scar-faced man, a strange blue light appeared in her pupils. Little Yen, his cultivation base has reached the 9th heaven stage of chi condensation. You can't beat him, said Gu Nianru. But Leng Yuan had already walked out, a 2-foot-long sword in her hand. It was a specially made weapon for her age. The scar-faced man smiled slightly. His luck was excellent. Leng Yuan had actually challenged him. According to the corrupt path's rules, these disciples would only have one chance to challenge them. As long as they passed, they would receive a large reward. But there was another rule. That was that they couldn't kill these children. However, the children challenging them didn't know about that rule. For Leng Yuan to challenge him now meant that she couldn't challenge him again in the future. He would receive an easy reward now. The people like him were most afraid of these disciples growing up before challenging them. Then they would definitely die. Leng Yuan unsheathed her sword. Even at such a young age, the whistling sound of her sword was so sharp. That was enough to show how strong her wrist strength was. Even some of the elders couldn't help nodding. This Leng Yuan was so young, but she was made of good stuff. The scar-faced man snorted and raised his sword. Leng Yuan's attack was easily blocked. In terms of power, she was unable to compete with him. Little Yen, cried Gu Nianru. Leng Yuan clenched her teeth. Blood was pouring out of her hand, but she seemed to not be able to sense it. She repeatedly slashed her sword. The corrupt experts shook their heads. Her first slash had been good, but by the third slash, she was just randomly hacking. The scar-faced man snorted. His sword danced and Leng Yuan was forced back 3 times. Blood dripped out of the corner of her mouth. After all, she was just a child and she was too lacking when it came to power. Furthermore, as she became furious, she even forgot to circulate her chi. Without circulating her chi, she was immediately sent flying back, a cut on her cheek. Blood slowly flowed out. She knelt there, trying to get up. But she didn't succeed. You really are too useless. I still remember that your father was that dark-skinned fellow, correct? When he died, you retaliated and even managed to kill Li Laosen. Over 2 years have passed, but you haven't grown at all. Don't even think about getting revenge in your life. You're fated to forever be weak. In the future, you'll only be able to crawl beneath the feet of the strong, sneered the scar-faced man. That was their mission. They were supposed to provoke these disciples to get stronger. They wanted them to be furious. They wanted them to go crazy. Leng Yuan was on the ground. The scar-faced man was too powerful. She felt like her body was about to collapse. Her mind entered a muddled state. She could vaguely hear Gu Nianru's cries, but that voice seemed so distant. Just as Leng Yuan was about to fall unconscious, she entered a strange space. There was a long-haired woman was in front of her. That woman was holding something in her hand. That was all Leng Yuan could tell. She was unable to see anything else about her figure. Who are you? cried Leng Yuan. This was her second time seeing this figure. You still aren't angry enough. This way, you won't be able to obtain the power that should be yours. He is right, you really are too useless. You are unable to get revenge for your parents. They died for nothing. That woman shook her head and then disappeared. No, I will get revenge. I'll get revenge for my parents. I'm not trash, I'll get revenge. Leng Yuan slowly raised her head. Her originally black and white eyes now twinkled with a blue light. It was a bit strange. Originally, everyone had thought that the battle was over. But Leng Yuan suddenly crawled up. She raised her sword and walked over to the scar-faced man. Her eyes, the scar-faced man's heart shook. He suddenly recalled that when Leng Yuan had killed Li Laosan, her eyes had also changed color. Die! Leng Yuan's sword slashed down. What startled everyone was that this attack brought with it a whistling sound that made it seem like it was tearing apart space. That wasn't a kind of power she should possess. The scar-faced man hastily raised his sword. As a result, sparks flew. He was forced back several steps. Just as he was knocked back, Leng Yuan's figure appeared in front of him. With a slash of her sword, his leg was severed. What? The experts' expressions all changed. Leng Yuan's power was extremely strange. They were unable to see through it. The scar-faced man hadn't expected a child to possess such power. Seeing another slash coming toward him, he hastily dodged. His sword was knocked out of his hand. Leng Yuan's sword flew. The scar-faced man's other leg and arms were all cut off. He screamed, but Leng Yuan was merciless. She thought of the love her parents had given her, and all kinds of scenes surfaced in her mind. She became more and more infuriated because these people had killed those that she loved the most. Leng Yuan's sword repeatedly slashed down. The scar-faced man was turned into mincemeat in front of everyone's shocked gazes. Suddenly, the blue light in Leng Yuan's eyes faded, and she collapsed limply. Gu Nianru hastily ran over to support her. Leng Yuan had succeeded in getting revenge. Countless other disciples immediately challenged the ones that had harmed them. Some succeeded, some failed. This revenge was a trial for these disciples. These were the ways the corrupt path raised its disciples. 3 days later, Leng Yuan and Gu Nianru were split into a group of 500 people. They cultivated together. They received missions to hunt magical beasts, and with Leng Yuan and Gu Nianru present, they never encountered any danger. 3 months later, Leng Yuan broke through to blood condensation. At this time, they tested their spirit roots. As a result, the higher-ups were disappointed to see that her spirit root was only silver grade. But Gu Nianru's spirit root had reached the dark gold rank. After testing their spirit roots, they underwent an extremely cruel challenge. Their group of disciples was about to undergo a knockout competition. 2 people would fight. The winner would live, while the loser would die. When they heard of this, everyone was dumbfounded. Their opponent was specially chosen by the situation. If the 2 disciples were unable to determine a winner within an incense stick's worth of time, the elder would directly cut off both their heads. Battle isn't a game. The corrupt god does not accept blasphemy. The goal of the battle is to kill your opponent. If you're afraid of death, you'll only die faster. The corrupt god has blessed all of you so that you'll become the strongest warriors. It's not for trash afraid of dying. If your faith is strong enough, you'll be fearless. Then you'll obtain the god's power and be unrivaled. If you're afraid of dying, it's a blasphemy to the corrupt god. The god's displeasure will end your life, said the elder sternly. Following that, 2 disciples immediately walked out. At the same time, they roared and began a fierce battle. They fought with their full strength, each of their attacks vicious, a true battle to the death. In just 10 moves, one of them killed the other, ending the battle. The thing that made Leng Yuan feel extremely fortunate about was that she wasn't in the same section as Gu Nianru. After her experience from last time, she had gained a slight understanding of the essence of battle. Her opponent was easily killed. As for Gu Nianru, she defeated her opponent in just 3 moves. Her opponent was dejected and killed by the elder. The fate of losers was death. Over 500 experts were cut down to half. In their original group of 10 people, Other than Leng Yueyin and Gu Nianru, the rest had all died during this competition. Leng Yueyin and Gu Nianru were dejected, but the elder didn't give them much time to feel sorrow. They were soon sent to a small town to slaughter the heathens there. They were heathens that had disrespected their god. When she watched those countless disciples slaughtering those unarmed commoners, Leng Yueyin couldn't help softly asking Gu Nianru, "Big sister, why do we live?" Gu Nianru looked at her and smiled slightly. "We live for ourselves. As for them, perhaps it's to vent their feelings. They feel much hatred inside. Perhaps doing this can make them feel a bit better." Gu Nianru and Leng Yueyin didn't participate in the slaughter. They just watched the other corrupt disciples roar and slaughter the commoners. They held each other as they watched on. Once the heathens were slaughtered, they disbanded and returned to their sect to cultivate. But the corrupt path's cultivation was extremely cruel. The elimination competitions continued. They happened periodically. Sometimes it would be half a year between them, sometimes there would be 2 in 1 month. Time passed bit by bit. The struggle between them only grew more and more intense, and the people were growing more and more vicious. This year, Leng Yueyin was 13 years old and already a bone-forging expert. Her beauty was also gradually showing itself. Quite a few disciples secretly set their intentions on her, but they only dared to think of that. That was because they were afraid of a certain person, Gu Nianru. Gu Nianru's name seemed to be amicable, but she would hunt down whoever dared to provoke Leng Yueyin to the ends of the earth. But once they reached the bone-forging realm, everyone's cultivation slowed down. The bone-forging realm was extremely important. It was a realm created through amassing resources. In this realm, the resources had to be concentrated on the absolute geniuses. Just now, Leng Yueyin had killed her final opponent. But she didn't feel the slightest bit of excitement. Instead, her expression was exceedingly grave. Within her original group of over 500 people, the only ones left were her and Gu Nianru. Furthermore, according to the rules, the two would now have to fight. In other words, only one of them would be able to live. It was an extremely cruel reality. It was just like the past. Once the two had won, they returned behind the mountains to amuse themselves. Gu Nianru had also grown into a beautiful woman. She was like a lotus flower blooming just out of the surface, and anyone who looked at her would feel a good feeling. When she smiled, those deep dimples were exceptionally enchanting. "Big sister, tomorrow we'll have to," Leng Yueyin's voice was a bit hoarse. "Will you kill me?" Gu Nianru softly brushed Leng Yueyin's hair, a tender expression on her face. Gu Nianru, to care for someone softly. "No. I'd rather die than see you die." Leng Yueyin held Gu Nianru, resting her head on her chest. Gu Nianru had always looked after her. She viewed her as practically more important than her own life. Therefore, there was no way Leng Yueyin could really fight her. Gu Nianru also tightly held Leng Yueyin. I begged the sect master, but his response was that these are the rules set by the corrupt god. Only one of us can live. Caressing her cheek, she asked, "Little Yen, is there anything you feel unfulfilled about?" Leng Yueyin shook her head. She had already gotten revenge for her parents. She had no regrets. But I do. When my parents died, I was in a panic and running. I didn't see them clearly. And most hateful of all, my little sister ended up getting lost as she ran with me. When I went back to find her, she was already a corpse. During these years, I've always been secretly investigating, trying to get revenge for them. Currently, I've only gained a few clues. Little Yen, your big sister is begging you. Give this chance to live to me. I want to get revenge for them, said Gu Nianru tearfully. Alright, if I can use my life in exchange for your life, I'm willing. It's just that we'll never be able to see each other again. Leng Yueyin was willing to die, but she was reluctant to part. Gu Nianru couldn't hold back her tears anymore. They streamed down and she sobbed, I'm also unwilling to part with you. I will always keep your corpse. I've heard that as long as people work hard at cultivating, they can one day become a god or immortal. At that time, I'll become a god and revive you from the dead. Then we can be reunited. Then I'll wait for you. Big sister, you're so amazing, "So I know you can do it," said Ling Yuan. Her confident gaze at Gu Nianru made it seem like she could see the day she would become a god. The next day, they were still on the same martial stage. The original 500 disciples had been whittled down to 2. There was an elder smiling at them from the stage. For him, seeing disciples slaughter each other was an extremely delightful thing. Furthermore, there were dozens of other elders who had come to watch. They were all looking at Gu Nianru expectantly. Gu Nianru had always been the disciple that had stood out the most amongst her peers. But she had one immense weak point, and that was Leng Yuan. Once Leng Yuan was gone, Gu Nianru would have nothing besides herself and would truly become a monster. Regretfully, Gu Nianru had always been caring too much about Leng Yuan, which had hindered her cultivation speed. So they wanted Gu Nianru to personally remove her burden, making her truly vicious. Once that happened, she would become a true expert. "Big sister, I'm going to attack now." Leng Yuan's expression was calm. Her sword suddenly came out of its sheath, piercing straight toward Gu Nianru's heart. Gu Nianru's sword was also as quick as lightning. After blocking Leng Yuan's sword, her own sword spun and stabbed toward Leng Yuan's head. This attack was extremely vicious. The elders nodded. Gu Nianru had finally accepted the situation and attacked her little sister. Their two swords repeatedly clashed. Sword chi erupted. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged 30 blows. Suddenly, Gu Nianru's sword shook and her sword light changed, becoming a lotus flower that mercilessly slammed toward Leng Yuan. Leng Yuan smiled sadly. This was the move she had agreed to die to yesterday. According to the plan, Leng Yuan stabbed her sword at the center of the lotus. That was the strongest part of the attack, and so she would definitely die. "Goodbye, big sister." Leng Yuan closed her eyes. But the pain she had expected didn't appear. When she opened her eyes, she was horrified to find that her sword had stabbed through Gu Nianru's heart. "Big sister," cried Leng Yuan. Even the elders' expressions changed. They were filled with fury. How? Let me heal you." Leng Yuan pressed her hand against Gu Nianru's chest, pouring her spiritual qi into her. But she found that all of Gu Nianru's meridians had been destroyed along with her heart. No one could save her now. Leng Yuan began to wail. "Little Yan, I'm sorry. I tricked you. Please forgive me. I really am unable to bear you dying right in front of me. Forgive my selfishness. I've passed the pain on to you. I've always thought of you as my real little sister. I don't know whether this is fate, or whether I wanted to make up for my regrets. Being able to die for you makes me really happy. Little Yen, don't feel bad. I trust you'll definitely become a god one day. In the future, you'll be able to revive Gu Nianru tried to raise her hand to touch Leng Yuan's face, but she failed. Her head fell as her life came to an end. "No. You're lying. Everything you're saying is a lie. There aren't any gods or immortals in this world, so why did you have to trick me?" Leng Yuan clenched Gu Nianru's corpse, letting out a heart-rending cry. How infuriating! That idiot actually dared to kill herself? That's a blasphemy to the corrupt god. Even if she's a corpse, I'll take her to use as a cauldron. One of the elders furiously came onto the stage and grabbed Gu Nianru's head, just about to take her away. "Bastard, release my big sister," raged Leng Yuan. She immediately slashed her sword at him. Boom! Leng Yuan's sword shattered. At the same time, the elder also sent a kick at Leng Yuan's ribs. Leng Yuan vomited blood, feeling like her ribs had broken into several pieces. "Slut, do you know? You ruined a peerless genius." The elder was enraged and once more sent out a kick. Leng Yuan was immediately sent flying and crashed onto the martial stage's stone pillar. A large gash appeared on her forehead, and her head was almost crushed. That elder was a meridian opening expert while Leng Yuan had only just reached bone forging. She had only tempered 6 bones, so the power difference between them was immense. She didn't have the slightest ability to resist. "Release, my big sister." Leng Yuan was already half unconscious. She struggled, but with her bones broken, she couldn't stand. She could only watch as that elder dragged Gu Nianru's body by the hair. He would stain her body. Her killing intent erupted. She had never felt this much hatred before. She once more entered that special space, once more seeing that mysterious woman. You're finally angry enough. It's time to take what's yours. That woman extended her hand, handing her something. Leng Yueyan didn't hesitate to grab it. But the elder had just left the stage when an icy killing intent soared. In that instant, a sensation of death filled everyone present. Those elders who had been about to leave turned to suddenly see Leng Yueyan reach her own hand toward her ribs. Her eyes were still closed. The sound of bones breaking rang out as Leng Yueyan actually tore off a piece of one of her ribs. That 3-inch piece of bone had only just appeared when white runes lit up on it. It began to grow, in the end becoming a bone sword. Leng Yueyan raised the bone sword and slowly opened her eyes. Her original eyes had become a deep ocean blue. They were like 2 sapphire gemstones. But those beautiful eyes seemed to belong to a devil. Those meridian opening experts all felt their blood turn cold. Leng Yueyan stood. A formless aura erupted out of her, one that directly blew apart the martial stage. Raging chi waves devoured the space. To dare blaspheme my big sister, I'll make it so you never reincarnate in this world. Leng Yueyan suddenly disappeared like a ghost. When she reappeared, she was right in front of that elder. That elder hastily raised his weapon to block. But his weapon was cut in 2 along with his body. That bone sword was actually incomparably sharp. Before he could make any further moves, Leng Yueyan's sword had already pierced his head. He let out a miserable shriek. His soul was being absorbed by the sword. This was a method to completely exterminate the soul, making it so that they couldn't reincarnate. He would forever disappear from the world. The other elders were appalled. Leng Yueyan had actually become a monster. They hastily rushed over, wanting to save that elder. Leng Yueyan held Gu Nianru's corpse in one hand while she swung her bone sword in the other. Sword chi slashed apart those powerful elders. Sect Master, save us. The particular elder that had been in charge of this group of disciples cried out. These elders rapidly fled, but Leng Yueyan seemed to have been possessed by a devil. Still holding Gu Nianru, she chased after them. With each slash of her sword, she cut through someone's body. No one could stop her. There was some kind of strange energy on her bone sword. Other weapons were unable to block it, let alone the human body. These meridian opening experts were slaughtered one by one like chickens. Suddenly, a spear blocked Leng Yueyan's sword. An elderly man appeared, causing the last one remaining, the elder in charge of her group, to rejoice. Sect Master, please handle this matter for us. This person was precisely Blood Fiend Gate's master. The elder immediately hid behind him. Shut up. The Gate Master shouted and turned to Leng Yueyan. Are you willing to take me as your master? Leng Yueyan icily looked at him. I can take you as my master. But if you are surpassed by me, I will take your head. Ah, good. Then I accept you as my apprentice, laughed the Gate Master. Get over here. I want to cut off your head. Leng Yueyan pointed her sword at the remaining surviving. The current Leng Yueyan was icily arrogant and bloodthirsty. She was like a completely different person. Hurry up, shouted the Gate Master. That elder immediately despaired. He could only go over. He knew that if he went over, he would die. But if he didn't, he would suffer a fate that was even worse than death. Smile, said Leng Yueyan coldly. What? In the end, that elder forced out several smiles. Leng Yueyan cut off his head when his smile was as close as possible to natural. His head was taken away by her. Leng Yueyan had suddenly killed dozens of elders and become the Gate Master's apprentice in one go. Those who had once offended her were all killed. Moreover, the Gate Master completely ignored all of it. Leng Yueyan brought Gu Nianru's corpse to the back mountains where they had once played. Her sapphire eyes looked at her body. Big sister, don't worry. I'll definitely become a god and revive you. It won't take too long. She put away her corpse. Her face was icy as she looked at the bone sword in her hand. If you were the one who set this up, then I, Leng Yueyan, swear to make you live a life worse than death. After becoming the Gate Master's disciple, Leng Yueyan returned to that small village. It was still in ruins, and she lived by herself there for 3 years. During those 3 years, she didn't cultivate. She just sat quietly in front of her parents' graves. However, her eyes stayed blue the entire time. They never returned to their previous state again. After those 3 years, she knelt in front of her parents' graves and said, "Mom, Dad, you raised me for 3 years, and I've mourned for you for 3 years. Although I can't repay all your kindness, your daughter is about to leave. If there is a next life, little Yen will repay all your kindness. From today onwards, little Yen is no longer little Yen. Dead goodbye." Leng Yueyen kowtowed 3 times. These 3 kowtows were a goodbye to her past. She was burying all memories of her past deep within her. She rose, her bone sword on her back. She didn't look back. Starting that day, a vicious devil empress was born in the corrupt path. The name Little Yen was gone. The only thing in people's memories was a vicious, emotionless killer, the devil empress Leng Yueyen. No one knew her past. That was because all those people had all died. They had died to Leng Yueyen's sword, including her master. The Dragon Blood warriors who were close to Berserk clenched their teeth and retreated. Long Chen had instilled this principle into them. At any time, they could be willful, rash, even cause trouble if they wanted to, but they could not be like that on the battlefield. On the battlefield, orders were everything. What were orders? Orders were things that had to be followed even if they involved sacrificing your life. Once orders were sent out, they had to be followed immediately and without any hesitation. Anyone who dared to go against the orders would no longer be a member of the Dragon Blood Legion. So despite their hatred, despite their fury, the Dragon Blood Legion retreated upon hearing Guoran's orders. Other than the rank 9 Celestials, the front lines suddenly pulled back. The ancient race, corrupt path, and ancient family experts chased, but their expressions quickly changed as they entered bow range of the Spirit Race warriors. The Spirit Race warriors didn't need any orders. They concentrated their firepower on assisting the Dragon Blood Legion. As a result, the spirit beasts of the Forest of Life lost their protection and were forced to clash all out against the Dark Forest's magical beasts. The battle was reaching its climax. The rank 9 Celestial from the Ancient Family Alliance tried to attack the Dragon Blood Legion several times as they retreated, but he was forced back by the Spirit Race warriors' concentrated attacks. As for the other experts, they used those openings to attack and cause chaos in the Spirit Race warriors' formations. However, unexpectedly, the Spirit Race warriors were extremely courageous and would rather die to protect the Dragon Blood Legion. Only once they guaranteed that the Dragon Blood Legion was safe did they start fighting back. As a result, large casualties appeared amongst the Spirit Race warriors. The Dragon Blood Legion began a fierce fight against the experts from the Ancient Races, the Corrupt Path, and the Ancient Family Alliance, along with the Dark Forest's magical beasts. This was the most brutal fight the Dragon Blood Legion had fought in all of history. Their enemies were fierce and outnumbered them by thousands of times, but their hearts were firm. As long as that person was present, he would definitely lead them to victory. All they had to do was wait for news. Boom. Peng Wanxing was sent flying by Long Chen's slap. Before he could do anything, he was kicked flying. This kick was extremely powerful, because Long Chen was already fighting all out. His divine ring and battle armor were in full force. Peng Wanxing shot across the ground, creating a straight ditch. Long Chen, you're asking for it? Peng Wanxing finally stabilized himself. At this time, he was already far from the battlefield. Golden runes lit up all over his body. I don't have time to waste words with you. Today, let's decide who dies. Long Chen didn't waste any time. He sent another kick at Peng Wanxing. Peng Wanxing was infuriated. This attack was clearly just to humiliate him. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his hands turned into sharp claws that reached toward Long Chen's foot. Peng Wanxing was a descendant of the Golden Peng, so his cultivation base's power was concentrated in his claws and wings. If he grabbed Long Chen's foot, he was confident that Long Chen wouldn't be able to escape. Thus, he was pleasantly surprised that Long Chen was so arrogant as to keep going with his foot. He easily caught it. Delighted, Peng Wansheng attempted to slam him into the ground. But just as he tried, thunder force erupted out of Long Chen, and an irresistible energy forced Peng Wansheng to let go. At the same time, the thunder force invaded his body, causing him to stiffen. At this moment, Long Chen's other foot viciously kicked Peng Wansheng in the nose. The sound of bones breaking rang out. Peng Wansheng let out a muffled groan as he was once more sent flying. Like a bolt of lightning, Long Chen chased after him. But at that moment, Long Chen felt his heart turn cold. When Peng Wansheng raised his head, Long Chen saw 2 golden runes in his eyes. Long Chen forcibly twisted his body in the air. At the same time, 2 golden rays shot out of Peng Wansheng's eyes. Long Chen's instinctive dodge managed to protect his vitals. However, his shoulder was struck by one of the golden rays, and it was blown away. Blood poured out, and even his bones were exposed. His blood dyed his upper body. This attack was bizarre. It had come so suddenly and at such a close range. If it hadn't been for his shocking spiritual perception, Long Chen might have been killed. This is the Golden Ping race's inherited secret technique, the Golden Peng Light. How does it feel? Peng Wansheng's primal chaos manifestation appeared behind him, and his broken nose was already healed. Just now, he had intentionally covered his face, making it seem like an instinctual reaction to having his nose broken. But it had been an act to cover himself as he unleashed one of his ultimate moves. He had almost succeeded. Does your face not hurt? If it doesn't, stick it out again for me to slap. Long Chen sneered as the primal chaos space unleashed its life energy. The injury to his shoulder almost instantaneously healed. Now that there was an ocean's worth of life energy in the primal chaos space, he didn't need to worry about being injured. Seeing Long Chen's injury instantly heal, Peng Wansheng's expression twitched. He was an Empyrean, and his attacks contained the power of the heavenly Daos. Even a rank 9 celestial would have difficulty healing themselves from injuries inflicted by him. His attacks contained the will of the heavenly Daos that constantly attacked the wound. A rank 9 celestial would probably need several days just to heal from that kind of injury. However, Long Chen had instantly healed it. Peng Wansheng was shocked. Since you don't want to take the initiative, I won't stand on courtesy. Long Chen began to form hand seals. Although he had fought against Peng Wansheng before, he knew that there had been too many people at that time. Although it had looked like a full power fight, Peng Wansheng had been holding back. With his experience, Long Chen knew that the most dependable way to defeat an expert like Peng Wansheng was to slowly increase his power and gradually test out his opponent's tempo and trump cards before attempting to kill them. This way gave the highest odds of victory. Because of his immense battle experience, Long Chen would have an absolute advantage in this aspect as the battle continued. The longer the fight, the greater his chances of winning. However, he couldn't do that now. With each passing second, lives were being lost. Intense fluctuations were also coming from Chu Yao's side as she fought against Sha Guangyan. It seemed they were already fighting all out over there. As for the original battlefield, Long Chen had no confidence in it. This time was different from past battles. This time, he no longer felt any sense of control over the battle. He had to fight for every second, and right now was the moment to go all out. Raging flames devour the heavens. Flame energy erupted out of him, and golden flames filled the sky. As he summoned his flame energy, the flames that were still raging on the original battlefield faded. Long Chen had to use all of Hualong's power. So that's what it was. You simply left a flame clone to deceive us, realized Peng Wansheng. Now he understood how they had been duped by Long Chen. The flames around that Long Chen had made them unable to tell the difference. Long Chen didn't reply. The golden flames around him condensed into a huge blade in his hand. He attacked. Did you summon this flame domain to suppress my feathers? Do you really think the Golden Peng race only has that little ability? Then I'll let you see the true abilities of the Golden Peng race, the power that a human like you would never be able to achieve even if you cultivated for 1,000,000 years. The golden runes in Peng Wansheng's eyes began to revolve faster and faster, and he suddenly soared into the sky. the sky suddenly darkened as a huge body appeared. It was a giant bird whose whole body was golden. The Golden Peng's true body? Long Chen was shocked. He hadn't expected that someone from the ancient races, who was clearly a mix between the human race and the Golden Ping race, would be able to bring out the complete Golden Ping true body. Peng Wansheng's huge body looked like it had been made of gold. Most terrifying of all, his aura was completely different from before. Are you curious? Then I'll tell you. Although I'm from the ancient races, my bloodline shows signs of returning to an ancestral state. It can be said that 99% of my blood is the blood of the Golden Ping race. If it weren't because of the damn trace of garbage human blood, I'd be able to join the Golden Ping race. If it weren't for that, I'd be able to summon the Golden Ping true body whenever I wanted. But now, to protect the purity of my bloodline, I have to rest for several months when I use this technique to make up for my exhausted spirit blood. All of this is because of your damn human race. Your garbage bloodline should have never existed in this world. You should all be killed, roared the transformed Peng Wansheng with great hatred. With his wings fully spread, his giant body covered the entire sky. He hated the trace of human blood in his body. He had thought of every possible method but hadn't been able to erase it. He considered it a kind of humiliation. This humiliation was the same humiliation of all the ancient races. Die, you damn human! Peng Wansheng dived down from the sky, shooting at Long Chen like a golden meteor. Peng Wansheng was incredibly fast. His huge body unleashed a fierce burst of astral winds that shook the sky. His huge wings slammed down, seemingly unstoppable. In the form of the Golden Peng true body, a single one of his wings was 3,000 meters long. Now that his wings slammed down, they were like giant unstoppable blades. This was Peng Wansheng's strongest state. Long Chen was prepared, and golden flame wings spread on his back. He punched the air. When he punched, the flame essence of the world concentrated on his fist and condensed into a huge fist image of flames that smashed toward Peng Wansheng. Boom! The golden wings smashed into the golden flame fist. Golden light erupted, blazing even brighter than the sun. Long Chen's expression changed slightly as his attack was shattered by Peng Wansheng's wings. But even more shocking was that he had lost track of Peng Wansheng. Suddenly he twisted. Using his leg like a whip, he swung it behind him. Boom! Long Chen's foot landed on a sharp claw. Peng Wansheng, whose body had shrunk to just a few meters, had appeared behind Long Chen. Long Chen was blown away. Although he had used his startling spiritual perception to intercept this claw, a bloody mark had been left on his leg. Even his dragon scales were unable to block Peng Wansheng's sharp claws. Die! Peng Wansheng's body instantly grew larger again, and he once more smashed his wings at Long Chen. Raging flames devour the heavens. Long Chen pulled out all his flame energy, covering the world with golden flames. Idiot, in my Golden Ping true body form, your flames are unable to harm me. Peng Wansheng sneered as his wings mercilessly slashed down. Boom! The huge wings blew Long Chen back once more. He carved a long ditch in the ground. No, Peng Wansheng suddenly felt that something was off. This flame-wrapped figure was lacking some kind of aura. Bang! Peng Wansheng tried to dodge, but a black pot viciously smashed into his head. Unable to defend in time, Peng Wansheng's head slammed into the ground, causing it to shatter. Bastard! Peng Wansheng roared. He had fallen for the same trick twice. Long Chen had a strange movement art. In a battle, he could randomly summon a flame clone that could be easily mistaken for his true body. In truth, this was one of Pill Valley's secret arts. Double Dragon Destruction. Peng Wansheng had just shot out of the ground when a godlike roar rang out. Two 30,000-meter dragons appeared around Long Chen. One was golden, while one was violet. They looked incredibly lifelike as they coiled together agilely. When they coiled together, heaven and earth rumbled, and the void was torn asunder. A terrifying pressure caused the world to quiver. This was Long Chen's first time using his full lightning and flame power after Hua Long had devoured all those earth flames and Lei Long had devoured the huge energy inside the lightning chains. Normally, there wasn't a suitable time to use such a huge move. If your enemy dodged, you would have just shown off your trump card for nothing. This kind of move could only be used to kill your opponent in one move. Long Chen had no time to look for openings. Since he had no time, he might as well force it. Peng Wansheng's heart shook as he stared at those two huge dragons coiling in the sky. This move was horrifying. Don't think you're the only one with trump cards. I have plenty as well. Peng Wansheng spread his wings. Starting from his tail, all his golden runes began to flow toward his head. At the same time, the golden runes in his eyes spun and began to blaze like suns. I'll let you experience the Golden Ping race's unrivaled skill. Golden Ping destroys the void. A huge golden figure appeared in front of Peng Wansheng. It was the exact same form as him. However, it was composed entirely of golden runes. It suddenly shot forward. The golden runes within it were growing larger and unleashing even more dazzling light. This move could no longer be called a technique of the ancient races. This was an inherited secret art of the Golden Ping race. Only extremely pure-blooded golden-winged Great Pengs could use it. Peng Wansheng was the descendant of the human race and the golden-winged Great Ping race. Thus, being able to unleash this move was already inconceivable. The two dragons smashed into the Golden Peng. The world shook violently and the ground exploded. Terrifying astral winds blew apart the clouds. It was day, and yet it was possible to see the stars in the sky shaking. Such an intense collision unleashed a blinding explosion of light that was visible even on the distant battlefield. Cloud, we have to work hard and kill these people. Casualties are already appearing in the Dragonblood Legion. Long Chen will be pained. Meng Qi's eyes had lost their luster, and she couldn't see the light. But she could sense Long Chen's aura. She knew Long Chen was putting everything on the line over there. She understood Long Chen too well. Each warrior of the Dragonblood Legion was his brother, and he was incapable of accepting a single one of them as a sacrifice. However, this battle was cruel. No one amongst the Dragonblood Legion could stop that powerful rank 9 Celestial. He was the greatest threat. Cloud let out a sharp bird cry in response to Meng Qi's words. Its feathers rose, and divine runes began to appear on them. It launched an all-out attack on the 3 rank 9 Celestials. Meng Qi formed hand seals and circulated her spiritual strength. The world began to change. One moment it was sunny and breezy, and in the next moment, a thunderous storm appeared. One moment it was a wonderland, and the next moment it became a bloody hell. She was affecting her opponent's spirits so that their view of the world constantly changed. This made it all too easy for them to make errors in judgment, and now, they were disturbing each other with their attacks. With Cloud's power, in a 1-against-1, it could absolutely defeat a rank 9 Celestial. However, to kill one would be very difficult. With Meng Qi's assistance, they were able to suppress the 3 of them. But killing them was simply impossible. After all, those were rank 9 Celestials. And right now, what they needed wasn't to beat them, but to kill them. That was the only way they could assist the others and lessen the casualties of the Dragonblood Legion. They had to go all out. Boom. Guoran forced back his rank 9 Celestial, but he was panicked. The situation of the battlefield was extremely grim, and the Dragonblood Legion was in danger. Fuck, do I only know how to show off? With this little ability, how can I keep following boss? Kill! Guoran roared, unleashing a tempest of attacks with his dual sabers. His opponent, who had originally been fighting evenly with him, was now forced to retreat over and over again. They all sensed Long Chen's aura, and they knew he was fighting all out over there. Gu Yang, Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, and the rest of the Dragonblood Legion let out furious roars and went all out. In another place far away from the main battlefield, sand and wooden stakes filled the air. Chu Yao stood atop a formation of wood, shooting out wooden stakes like arrows. She was also going all out against Sha Guangyan. The land had been turned into a sea of sand, and she had summoned a mountain of wooden stakes. The two of them were fighting an intense battle. Glancing into the distance, Chu Yao couldn't conceal her worry. She was skilled in defense, not offense. Although she was doing her best, she knew it was impossible for her to kill Sha Guangyan. The two of them had plenty of spiritual yuan, and a fight between them was a fight of endurance. Their offensive and defensive power were too similar to each other, and neither of their elemental natures had a restrictive effect on the others. Victory or defeat would be decided by whose spiritual yuan would last longer. Even if she could defeat Sha Guangyan in terms of spiritual yuan, it would take a long time to do so. Most importantly, Sha Guangyan wouldn't just foolishly sit here until his spiritual yuan was exhausted. He would run, and Chu Yao wouldn't have any opportunity to kill him. So right now, the only one who could turn the entire battlefield around was Long Chen. If Long Chen won, the situation would instantly reverse. As for if he lost, Chu Yao never thought of that possibility. It wasn't just her, anyone who understood Long Chen never thought that he would lose. Right now, Long Chen couldn't just defeat Peng Wanqing. He had to kill him. Just defeating him was meaningless. If Peng Wanqing simply fled back to the main battlefield and targeted the Dragon Blood warriors, he would cause huge casualties. So the only thing that could quickly reverse the tides of this battle was if Long Chen could slay Peng Wanqing. Long Chen, I trust you. You can do it. Chu Yao looked at that blazing light in the distance, praying inside. The golden peng and the two dragons exploded. A tempest of chaotic energy unfurled, devouring both Long Chen and Peng Wanqing. Both of them violently hacked up blood. This exchange had been horrifying. Both of them were injured. Peng Wanqing's manifestation circulated, and his injuries slowly healed. At that moment, Long Chen shot over to him. The black pot in his hand explosively grew, becoming as large as a mountain as it smashed down toward Peng Wanqing. The black pot became enormous, and a mass of its black rust floated away. Long Chen was finally able to create the slightest connection between himself and the pot, allowing him to use a bit of its powers. Boom! Peng Wanqing had never seen such a bizarre weapon, and he slammed his claws into the pot, trying to tear it apart. What cracked wasn't the pot but Peng Wanqing's claws. The pot wasn't harmed at all. Peng Wanqing let out a pained groan as he was sent flying. The pot's power was too bizarre. His claws, which were comparable to ancestral items, had been broken. Long Chen didn't give Peng Wanqing any chance to take a break. He once more smashed his pot at Peng Wanqing. The pot was what remained of the ancient expert who had created the Four Nations' ancient remnant. Now he could form the slightest spiritual connection to it. Before this, the black pot had never responded to Long Chen. It was only just now that it seemed to have woken up from a deep slumber. Long Chen's spiritual energy poured into the pot, and the pot finally responded. It instantaneously grew to help him strike Peng Wanqing. Peng Wanqing released a noise that sounded like an explosion. He turned into a golden ray of light that slammed toward Long Chen. Boom! Golden light mixed with black dust flew through the air. Long Chen's wrist cracked, and he vomited blood. Peng Wanqing was no better off. His golden wings were now bloody, and his huge body tumbled back across the ground. The wings of the golden peng race were their strongest weapons. But when he used them to clash with the pot, they had almost broken. That filled Peng Wanqing with shock. Fuck, a damn pot for begging dares to show off in front of me? Ridiculous. Peng Wanqing roared furiously. His huge body vanished as he reverted to his original, winged human form. The primal chaos behind him revolved, and the injuries to his wings quickly healed. This was the terror of Peng Wanqing. Someone with such a powerful physical body and quick recovery abilities was practically impossible to defeat. This pot isn't for begging but for stir-frying. Today, I'm planning on eating chicken wings. Long Chen used the pot once more. The pot's item spirit had woken, but it still seemed to be in a half-conscious state. Long Chen couldn't use too much of his power. As long as he poured in his spiritual yuan to it, it would grow larger and unleash greater power. Just that was enough. Having humiliated the Golden Peng race, you've signed death warrants for your entire bloodline, Long Chen. Peng Wanqing was a descendant of the noble golden-winged Great Peng, but Long Chen had called him a chicken. As he roared, Peng Wansheng's feathers raised, and a golden rune appeared on his forehead. A golden spear materialized in his hand. Countless runes revolved around the spear, and it was like the sharp fang of a devil king. Using my name as a descendant of the golden Peng, awake my full power. Divine light began to shine from the rune on Peng Wansheng's forehead. The golden spear in his hand began to buzz. The spear seemed like an ancient beast that had been sealed for countless years and now finally regained its freedom. Overflowing killing intent erupted. Die! Peng Wansheng's spear unleashed a wave of golden light. A terrifying pressure caused the world to shake. Long Chen's expression changed. He knew that Peng Wansheng had used some secret technique to fully activate the ancestral item in his hands. Ancestral items were normally only usable by Life Star experts. Below the Life Star realm, an ancestral item's item spirit would not be fully convinced of their master's power and would only use a small portion of their own power to help their master. Yet, Peng Wansheng had now fully activated the ancestral item. This attack was full of destructive power. It came so suddenly that Long Chen had no time to change what he was doing. He could only pour his spiritual yuan into the pot. Boom! The golden spear slammed into the pot. A heaven-shaking eruption unleashed huge ripples that blew apart the ground and shattered any mountains in their way. A giant mushroom cloud of dust appeared in the sky, and the space for 10,000 miles was twisting like the world was covered in water. Long Chen repeatedly coughed up blood. His upper body was a bloody pulp, and even his bones were exposed. That huge power had almost caused his body to crumble away. Long Chen was in an extremely miserable state, but Peng Wansheng was also covered in blood. He was staring in shock at the remaining half of the spear in his hand. The rest of it had shattered. Long Chen pressed his feet into the air, stopping himself from being blown further away. Faint cracks had now appeared on the pot, and he didn't dare to use it any longer. Evil Moon, I'm giving you one last warning. You better not cause any trouble, or I'll toss you in manure and seal you there for eternity. A pitch-black saber appeared in Long Chen's hands. An incredibly evil aura filled the air, mixed with a will to slaughter everything. It felt like the air of hell had suddenly emerged. Long Chen raised the black saber into the air, and a saber image soared through the sky, causing the stars to quiver. A formless aura locked Peng Wansheng down. Fuck, how can he use it? Peng Wansheng's expression changed upon seeing Dragonbone Evil Moon. Just now, because he had been lost in shock from the destruction of his weapon, he hadn't been able to react before being locked down. It had to be known that powerful moves in battle all required a long casting time, and that was the only way to lock down an opponent and prevent them from fleeing. Without locking down an opponent, they would just run away when you unleashed your attack. Then your huge ultimate move would be a joke. So before unleashing a big move, you had to create an opportunity to unleash it, forcing your opponent to have no choice but to receive it. Long Chen had finally created that opportunity and grasped it. He had locked Peng Wansheng down, and the latter had no choice but to receive his attack now. The black saber unleashed endless killing intent. It felt like millions of fiends were roaring. It was definitely a peerless evil weapon that was forged only to slaughter. Peng Wansheng's expression became extremely ugly. Clenching his teeth, he stuck out a finger and drew a vertical cross on his forehead. Golden essence blood began to drip out. Peng Wansheng was forcing out his most precious, purest essence blood. Blood of the golden Peng offered to my ancestors. Bloodline summoning, ancestral spirit possession. The void exploded, and a huge 30,000-meter figure appeared behind Peng Wansheng. It was like a god had descended to the world. This figure was composed of golden runes. It was a human with golden wings just like Peng Wansheng, and he held a golden spear. This spear was equally large. When the figure raised the spear, the world rumbled as if it couldn't bear this power. This was the Golden Ping race's secret art, while that figure was an ancestral heroic spirit that the Golden Ping race offered sacrifice to. It was an extremely terrifying existence. Most extremely ancient inheritances would involve offering sacrifice to an ancestral spirit. In the ancient era, there were some experts who weren't willing to ascend and instead transformed their lives into protective wills that looked after their descendants. As long as their descendants continued to sincerely sacrifice to them, their heroic spirit wouldn't fade. Like an oil lamp, as long as they continued offering more oil, the flame would not go out. Peng Wansheng had now summoned the Golden Ping race's ancestral spirit, but the price had been a huge amount of his essence blood, as well as his purest essence blood located in the space between his eyebrows. Long Chen didn't even look at the giant figure. All he focused on was unleashing his full power. His 108,000 stars poured their energy through 45 of his acupuncture points. The black saber image in the sky grew more and more solid. It now looked like a true blade, but it didn't cause any rumbling. Instead, it was deadly silent. It was the calm before the slaughter. Split the heavens 5. Long Chen let out a thunderous cry that was like the roar of a devil god. The black saber hacked down following Long Chen's movements. It unleashed boundless killing intent. Golden Peng heaven-breaking attack. Peng Wansheng also let out a cry, and the huge figure behind him stabbed its spear at Long Chen. When the golden spear met with the black saber image, the explosive rumbling faded. Deathly silence took over the world. Boom. Then an incomparably violent explosion caused the world to rock. Golden rays of light and black waves spread, unleashing apocalyptic power. The ground crumbled, split, and exploded. Countless cracks appeared in the sky. It felt like a tsunami was spreading through heaven and earth. Terrifying waves spread into the distance. The huge sound caused all the experts fighting on the distant battlefield to go deaf. Then in the next instant, terrifying astral winds buffeted them. Everyone hastily blocked, while the magical beasts high in the sky were blown far into the distance. The fierce astral winds made them feel like their bodies were being torn apart. The weaker ones coughed up blood. "What kind of power is this?" cried one of the ancient family experts as he stared at the space in the distance that was still twisting violently. Long Chen's robes were torn apart, and his body was covered in blood. He was panting slightly, but his eyes were calm. He stepped through the air. Finding his target, he shot over. He put away the black saber, replacing it with a medicinal cauldron that he smashed into a giant hole beneath him. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.